Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Where is it? We'll be calling the Thursday, June 24th, 2021 meeting, Landmarks Commission meeting to order. The preamble, oh, here it is, okay. In compliance with notification requirements of Ohio's open meeting law under COVID-19 emergency declaration, notice of this meeting has been publicly posted. All boards and commissions under the purview of the city planning department conducts its meetings according to Robert's Rules of Order. Actions during a meeting will be taken by voice vote. Abstentions from any vote due to conflict of interest should be stated for the record prior to the taking of any vote. In order to ensure that everyone participating in the meeting have the opportunity to be heard, we ask that you use the raise hand feature before asking a question or making a comment. The raise hand feature can be found in the participants panel on the desktop and mobile version and activated by clicking the hand icon. Please wait for the chair or facilitator to recognize you and be sure to select unmute and announce yourself before you speak. When finished speaking, please lower your hand by clicking on the raise hand icon again and mute your microphone. We will also be utilizing the chat feature to communicate with participants. The chat feature can be activated by clicking the chat button located on the bottom of the WebEx screen. Thank you, and the meeting is called to order.
Thank you, Giancarlo. Julie, are you in the meeting yet?
I am in the meeting. Sorry about that delay.
Congratulations.
I might actually be here twice trying to get in.
Good morning, Julie.
Good morning, everyone. Would you like me to take over, Giancarlo?
Sorry?
Would you like me to take over, or would you like to
Yes,
continue?
go ahead, please.
Okay, Mr. Pettit, please call roll.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson.
Here.
Ms. Bailey. Ms. Bailey, are you muted? Mr. Bonezzi.
Here.
Mr. Colicchia.
Here.
Director Collier. Mr. Dreyer.
Here.
Councilman Jones. Mr. Santora. Mr. Strickland.
Here.
Mr. Tarasik.
Here.
Ms. Trott.
Here.
Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
Excellent. Well, welcome everyone to the Landmarks Commission meeting. It's nice to see everybody, even if it's in a virtual state. A little housekeeping before we start off. The facilitator controls your slides, so please announce when you would like them to advance. We will begin with our certificates of appropriateness. We ask for the first applicant to use the raised hand function to allow us to recognize you, unmute your connection, and announce yourself and tell us about your project. The first project is the Shaker Towers, located at 2815-25 East 130th Street, and the proposal is for murals.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Jay Westbrook. I'm the project manager for Make Your Mark. I also am the facilitator for what is called the East 130th Street Working Group. Make Your Mark is a quite exceptional and somewhat unique community-based arts project that is made up of 8 young people recruited from an area, Harvey Rice School, and from the church right across the street from this location, Holy Grove Church. And they worked for 3 months with 2 professional muralists, Brandon Graves and Lauren Pierce, or Lauren McKenzie. And both of the muralists are here today. They our partners include the church, the school, organization, organizing titles under Shaker, the Shaker Square Alliance, and Collective Express.
Councilwoman Graves, Lois Graves.
Hello? Executive Director Josiah Britt of Collective Express. And today we have present for our presentation Josiah Britt, Shay Smith, the manager and of the Shaker Square Towers. We're very happy to have both muralists, Lauren McKenzie and Brandon Graves, as well as Harriet Wadsworth. And respecting your time, I will mostly narrate an earlier portion of the slide presentation, and then Josiah Britt will jump right in. So you see on your screen 2 twin buildings located right in the middle of East 130th Street, south of Shaker Square, a half a block, and north of Buckeye, a half a block. This is this building is just north of the Shaker zip code post office, located on East 130th. And its exact address is 2815, the north building, and 2825, the south building. Now, I think you'll recognize this building because this is now the 3rd time it's been before the Landmarks Commission for a variety, or not a variety, but a couple of different reasons. And you'll see in this contemporary picture, the first floor under the building parking area, now enclosed with cinder block. We advance the slide. You'll see the early state, which was first floor parking. And again, you'll see the current state, the enclosed wall. I was present at Landmarks Commission when Shay Smith met with the commission regarding the treatment of the wall. And Madam Chair, I'm aware that you, on behalf of the commission, worked with the owner to explore various treatments, and I'm sure you'll have some comment about that. I believe the last idea that was discussed was a type of stucco, and we're here today to tell you that working with Sherwin-Williams, our hometown global paint company, Sherwin-Williams, one of their specialists in terms of materials for the wall, and if we advance the slide, we'll see an indication of those materials. This is the material safety data sheet from Sherwin-Williams, identifying, first of all, the primer treatment, which is a Luxcon. And this is a treatment made especially for cinder blocks and other very porous surfaces that creates a thick, almost stucco-like primer coat. And this will be followed by a top coat, which is called super paint. Super paint is also recommended by the Sherwin-Williams specialist who worked with us. I just say a note that Sherwin-Williams has made a very significant charitable contribution to this project with a deep discount on the paint treatment cost. And so and then there will be a final treatment. I'm skipping over the mural because you're going to hear a lot about that. But the after the primer, the top coat, the mural are put on, the fourth coat will be an anti-graffiti coat, also recommended by Sherwin-Williams, which is graffiti resistant, and it won't stop it from being put on, but this anti-graffiti coat allows rather easy removal. So I do want you to know that the primer, the super paint, and the anti-graffiti will all be placed 360 degrees all around the building. The mural itself will be placed, and you'll see in great detail, on the west-facing wall, which is the wall that faces East 130th. We had a very good discussion with the local design review committee about the top coat, the super paint top coat, which has a tint to it. And the intent is to select a tint color that goes along with the brick facing and the rest of the building, and probably not too different from the trim treatment on the building now. But local design review discussed with us coming back to the staff to discuss that tint, and we're happy to do that and look forward to doing that. And if we end up doing a lighting treatment, it was also recommended, if not required by the local design review, that we come back and discuss that with the staff as well. So the last thing I want to do is mention our sponsors. We are very pleased to have the support of the local design review committee, as I'm sure you're aware, as well as Tara Petras, the public art manager for the city of Cleveland. I believe Mr. Pettit has on file her letter of support, and we are thrilled to have the support of the local councilman, Blaine Griffin. This project, although it has many moving parts, we're thrilled to have such highly qualified muralists as Mr. Graves and Ms. McKenzie, and we intend to pay them a full commission, which is to say artwork of this magnitude takes time. For artists has a price tag with it. The budget for this project's in the range of $50,000. I was considering devoting my retirement fee from or refund from PERS, but it wouldn't quite meet the amount, so we raised the funds. And we're really pleased that we raised funds from Cleveland Foundation, St. Luke's Foundation, the Codrington Foundation, Neighborhood Connections, IOBI. We have an active IOBI campaign going on. And as soon as we get permission from the city, we're going to be ready to hit go and get going with this mural. Having said that, enough detail and background, let me introduce the very dynamic artistic director for the project, Josiah Brett. Josiah heads up a wonderful collaborative called Collective Express that seeks to bring community work and art together for empowerment and uplifting of community. Josiah Brett, please join us.
Good morning, and thank you so much for your time and consideration. And Jay, thank you so much for giving a background on the project. I'll try to be very brief in the interest of time. And also thank you for working with my schedule to make sure that we were able to present today. So yes, Make Your Mark is all about the vision of a community. We brought children together who had an artistic aptitude, and we paired them with professional muralists. And the outcome of this is to create a dynamic mural that is going to completely change the streetscape of East 130th. In terms of Shaker Square, the 4 quadrants of Shaker Square all have slightly different residents that kind of live behind it. And over the years, Buckeye has been seen as sort of a problem area due to some blight, due to some crime, due to some disinvestment, and there are unfortunately aspects of structural racism at play as well. But what we're trying to do here is we're trying to take the work of East 130th Working Group that helped to get the blight out of the area, and now go far, far beyond that and bring Buckeye back into the fold of being an area that you would want to visit. And in order to do that, a large scale mural on this street just makes sense, just given where the building is and the willingness of the building owner, the building manager, Shay Smith, Holy Grove Church, which is on the street as well. We have Edwin's that just showed up on Buckeye. We have Burton Bell Carr that is now overseeing this area, and murals are the talk of the town, not just here, but all over. So we would definitely like to see Buckeye be a part of that. And what you're seeing is slides from the actual Zoom art lessons that were held through the pandemic. So we were virtual with these 8 young folks, and then we were able to meet in person. Next slide, please. The project, once again, was just to get these 8 young people to express themselves about community and what they saw in community, and then translate their ideas professionally. Next slide, please. And here you have the 2 muralists, Lauren Pierce and Brandon Graves. And those are actually screenshots of them teaching these youth how to create portraits. And it was very hands-on. It was very instructional. And you're also seeing 2 examples, large-scale examples of mural projects that they have completed. Most are in Cleveland, but there are some that are elsewhere. And you know, these are works that are celebrated in the community, and it sort of goes in a line of the style that they paint in. Next slide, please. These are all the participants that helped make this project possible. We couldn't have done it without the church, without Harvey Rice School, and a whole host of others that supported us, Land Studio, and of course our financial backers who really stepped up and made this possible. Next slide. That's our letter from the Councilman, Griffin, showing his support for this project. Here's the shot that shows you where on the street these buildings are located. They're right next to the post office. And what we're proposing is basically creating a backdrop for that entire side of the street. This street in particular is a corridor. It's an expressway. this is the street that people take when they are going from the Buckeye neighborhood to Dave's Supermarket, to Ride the Rapid, to the bank. So you get tons and tons and tons of traffic that go up and down the street by foot and by car. And there's really no better place, in my opinion, that we could put up something that really speaks to the identity of the population that lives over here, that really starts to give Buckeye a lot of traction in terms of people taking it seriously as being a place you want to live, a place that you don't just pass through or pass around. Next slide, please. And here are the dimensions to the mural as we propose it. What you're looking at is the 2815 building, and you're looking at the north side that faces Shaker Square, or the back of Dave's parking lot, and as it wraps around the front of the building. And so we would like to take that first section on the north side and start wrapping the mural around the front. And if you'll hit the next slide, please. This is the south building. So we would like to extend it over the front of that building as well, and then wrap it around the south side of the building as well. So that last panel will actually be facing Buckeye Road and the post office. And those are the dimensions. Next slide, please. And what you're looking at here is a rough sketch of what we want to do. Basically, this project was entirely driven by the actual ideas of the youth. This was not something where we just kind of brought them in and made them feel good and then took, credit to say, hey, we had youth engagement. The ideas and the representation that is being presented right now is driven by the youth. And we have two muralists who work in similar but very different styles, who each took a portion of this. And what you're seeing is on the front, the actual likeness of the kids that were in the program. And their likeness is also down to their clothing. And in the clothing, there are all sorts of messages and representation that these children felt was very important for the community to see and to reflect on. And then as we look at the north side panel, you're seeing the representation of the neighborhood and different aspects of that. So keep in mind, these are rough sketches done by two different artists brought together, but all of it will be done cohesively when they work together on the mural. Next slide. And again, you're seeing more of the representation of those in the actual program, and also a message of love that is being sent out to the Buckeye neighborhood. Notice the colors, notice the textures. We're looking to create a vibrant backdrop, something that people will be happy to interface with, whether just passing by or looking out of their apartment window across the street, or if they are on foot, that they would be able to walk up on this, and each time they look at it, they would be able to find something new about it, something that is both familiar and would create appreciation for the neighborhood that they live in. And so that's sort of the style in which this was designed by these two muralists. And, to have the buy-in of the building owner and manager, as well as, the Shaker Square Alliance and so many others. I think it's time to give Buckeye something, some sort of a centerpiece in order to just raise the morale in this street in particular, which has been through some serious ups and downs. Next slide. And so here you're seeing the rough design of the full mural layout. It's a total of almost 2,800 square feet. And this is what we are proposing to give back to Buckeye. And we certainly hope that that the Landmarks Commission and the City of Cleveland sees the value in this project and understands just how much of a increase in the quality of life that it could create by just putting this sort of representation on the wall. And there is a maintenance plan that we are working to develop with Land Studio, the building owners, and the management team. And the Make Your Mark admin. And the goal is going to be to obviously do it right the first time, which is why we reached out to Sherwin-Williams, and they gave us, you know, a full their full endorsement of the products that we intend to use. And then we will just see to it that this thing stays nice for many, many years to come, and that the neighborhood will be better for it. I also like to note that there will be signatures on the left corner, lower corner of the Muralists, as well as the students who were a part of this whole process. And we would like to give sponsorship acknowledgement in the lower right corner of this mural as well. With that being said, I think that's all I had to say. And thank you for your time.
Thank you for that great presentation and explanation of the project. We're going to move on to city departmental staff feedback. Is Tara with us today?
Madam Chair, Tara couldn't join us today, but I have an email from her that I can share with the commission. She supports the project. She thinks the uplifting colors, imagery, and message of the murals will be a welcome addition to the current drab cinder blocks and will enliven the space as a whole, and that the heavy community engagement will give the murals a sense of space and ownership from the community. So she fully supports the project. We also have the letter of support from Councilman Griffin. This was reviewed by the Shaker Square Design Review Committee on Tuesday. They unanimously approved it with the two conditions that Mr. Westbrook stated, that staff review and approve the final light fixture and the final color of the remainder of the walls on the first floor.
Excellent, thank you. All right, then I guess that it's the majority of other people that would be here related to the project, and we'll move on to opening the floor for the commission for comments and questions. Who would like to start us off from the commission? Ms. Bailey?
I have some comments. I'm not sure if my hand is raised.
Yours is Giancarlo. Ms. Bailey, do you want to go first and then we can move on to you, Giancarlo?
Sure.
You're back on mute again. Adrian,
Oh,
there, now you're off.
okay. I just have a few comments. Are we voting on the mural? Because I noticed comments was made on other part of the building, or is that separate?
I think the extent of the mural and the remainder of the first floor is what we are voting on. Correct, Don?
That's correct. The mural is the only thing on the agenda today.
Okay. All right. Because what was presented now is the mirror, and the next presentation is going to be part of this building we're going to hear later. But I do have comment on the mirror.
Well,
I would
before
like
you
to
move on to
thank
that,
everyone that's involved on this project. It's a wonderful project, especially when children's involved. I love that. And I like the concept involving, I can see on the mirror, showing family involvement, community. I could see the neighborhood represented by transportation. And I like the idea with the street sign saying peace and togetherness, just representing the neighborhood. So I like that concept and all. One question I have, and of course it's going to go to staff, that when we do have the sponsorship and the student sponsorship, that the task of the color doesn't overwhelm the artwork when you make that final decision, because I don't see the information showing how that artwork is going to be. So I prefer that it doesn't stand out as strong. It's there, but it's not overwhelming the artwork. So I really like that artwork that's shown on here. I could see the neighborhood gathered as family, and I'm assuming that's over here on the left with a blue color in there. It's a celebration, graduation, education. Is that what that's representing, Mr. Brick?
Yes.
Okay, so I like that. So, but this is a wonderful project, so I'm in support of it.
Thank you, Ms. Bailey. Giancarlo, would you like to go next? Giancarlo, you're on mute.
How's that better?
Much better.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions from Mr. Westbrook and the artist. So initially you were talking about the super paint. So let me just back up for a second. I personally am not a huge fan of murals, and I'll tell you why. Not because it's an expressive art form, but because it has a fundamental nature that it's something temporary. And this design here is really striking, and I think it's offering a joyous combination of colors. So I guess my questions initially are about the material, the paint itself. So you mentioned a 4-step process, and you said that the first is a primer, the second is a top coat, the fourth was a graffiti resistant paint. What was the third one?
Madam Chair, Mr. Giancarlo, the third is the mural itself.
The mural itself, okay. So each step is a different composition of the paints, the various paints that are being used? So we're looking at a primer that would seal the surface and accept the actual paint of the mural itself. The third one is a sealant of the paint. Is that what the process envision is?
If I may, let me try to, I may not have expressed it adequately. The primer coat is described in some detail on the material safety data sheet that's enclosed in the slide presentation. I know it's hard to read in the slides, but it can be enlarged. I know, I believe the staff has reviewed it. I'm not a paint specialist, and however, thanks to the contribution from Sherwin-Williams, they sent us a specialist. And
no, I actually admire and respect the research you've done. I don't think there is such a thing as a paint specialist with possibly the potential of these Sherwin-Williams and other companies that have done research on paints for generations. But to me, I think my question pertains to the longevity and the security of the colors and the surfaces of this mural. If it starts falling apart in 3 or 4 or 5 years, it becomes not a work of art, but it becomes actually a burden to the community. And I'm sure that the artists themselves would be concerned about something like that. That's the focus of my question. It's a large mural, very expressive, very well designed, I think. The colors are these beautiful pastel colors. But I'd like to see this 10, 15, 20 years from now as, you know, as generations grow, they grow to learn what this is about, what art is about, and what these expressions are about. That's why I'm concerned about the materials. Sorry.
It's a
May I interject?
yes, please.
So the application of the materials is in line with what they recommend for buildings on the coastlines. So the Loxon product is a product that goes onto masonry surfaces, and the primer and the mural itself will be painted with super paint, which is also recommended by Loxon, the Loxon product itself. So there's not going to be any, product that's only specific to murals being used. We're using a Sherwin-Williams product designed to protect buildings, and we're just using tints that will allow the muralist to create the dynamic artwork.
And to add, and Josiah referred to this in his full presentation, is that we have a collaborative with Land Studio, the building owner, and the Major Mark Mural. I know, Giancarlo, that in my former field of politics, people think of themselves as permanent, but I don't know of any thing that is truly permanent. But I know that we all, and the artists are on the presentation as well, we all acknowledge and support your sense of longevity. And what I could say right now is that we've got the full intent of the building owner, as well as with the breadth of the whole project and the artistry of the muralist, all focused, and the stewardship of Land Studio, if I could say. So there's 4 ingredients that are focused on just the point that you've raised.
Thank you so much. I do remember meeting you long before you had some gray hair. I assume that's a sign of, I like to think that's a sign of wisdom.
Well, I'll take your endorsement for that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's a great plan. I love these colors. I think they're a combination of sincerity and joyfulness, and I wish you the best. And my concern is not a criticism. It's just I would like to see something like this continue and be appreciated and questioned and observed by the next generation of people. Because I think that's one of the functions of art, especially mural art and public art, is that we inspire the new generations and remember our history as human beings. So thank you.
You've been a champion of those principles and views, and I hope that you'll join us on the site and
I will
interact some with the artist, and certainly be present with us. If you give us the green light, be present with us when we have the dedication and unveiling, and meet some of the young people as well. You're a real asset on this Landmarks Commission, if I may say. Enough congenial exchange, but Giancarlo does have a great reputation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Giancarlo. Mr. Tarasik? Questions or comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do recall when this property first came before the Landmarks Commission, and with the completion of this particular mural, I want to thank everybody that's involved with this project, and the transformation of this property has been tremendous from the first time that it's come before this commission. I too support this wholeheartedly. I think it's a wonderful project. I think it sends a terrific message to the community. And again, I want to thank everybody involved. It really is a fabulous project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tarasik. Ms. Mackenzie, do you have something to add on the conversation earlier? I see your hand up.
Can you see me?
Yes, are you
Okay.
you're related to the project?
I am. I'm one of the muralists. I was just going to mention that we were talking about the longevity of the paint, but Josiah took care of that. So.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Other questions or comments from the commission? Okay, I will make my comments now if there's other comments from others. I do agree with much of the conversation that's had so far. I think this is a great program and approach to developing these murals with the community involvement. My only feedback would be related to how these murals interact with the building. I know previously we had a lot of conversation about the building and trying to respect the original architecture, so at least it felt like you're integrating it and not taking away what was previously there. This mural will go from corner to corner on each building, correct? Like will there be any separation between the murals and or from the lintel at the top or the ground?
At this time, we have, the option of making it, from the lintel to the ground, but that doesn't necessarily have to, be the only consideration, of course.
I guess my personal preference would be to have a little bit of relief from the main architectural features so that it stands on its own and doesn't feel like it's competing with the architecture. The piers were something we talked about previously, so if there was ways to express some of the architectural piers that were previously there that were shown in the original picture, I personally would like that because I think this is a unique building for this area. Oh, there we go. And trying to allow some of the original architecture to come through, I think would be helpful. I don't think all of these piers could be expressed, but trying to work with giving, as you can see, I mean, there was relief from the top, plinth. There was a plinth there, and there was, the architecture, and then, if in this case it was a large lintel that transcended the entire building. I do think there needs to be some relief from the architecture, though, and from the entry, so that it feels and represents that, I mean, it's a mural in itself. We don't want it to take over the building, though. I should say my personal opinion is I don't want it to take over the building in its entirety on that first floor. And then with this, previously we had spoken about some landscaping and some site improvements in front of the building. Are those still being considered? And would those be a future project or part of this project?
Shay Smith is on with us, so Shay, if you want to join in, let me say, first of all, as we referred to the tent and the lighting, we do understand that we would want staff review of landscaping. I know that they're related to the mural. There are other undertakings going on the site to prohibit any parking in this surfaced area in the front. There's a lot of work going on to redo the drive and to create restricted parking in the back of the building. At this, we are not including a landscape feature with this presentation, but there is intent to finalize the front improvements with landscaping. Am I right, Shay?
Yes, actually, I think that was something we already covered in the last meeting with them, was that we were supposed to we're going to take out that drive there, and it's going to be, we lost my video, but yeah, it is going to be landscaping there and a handicap parking spot, and that's it.
That's great to hear, because I think you're making such a community investment. Improving that area in front of the building will really finish that thought and reduce the amount of that people will go up to it, and reduce the opportunity for people to do any damage to it. I mean, it really just reinforces the investment that you and the community are making. So I think I'm glad to hear that those are still being considered and will move forward, either following this project or with this project.
Yeah, actually, we were just waiting we wanted the mural to get installed, and we know there's going to be a little bit more working with like the doorways and the pillars and that sort of thing. And so we want to be able to complement it once it's installed. So we kind of figured maybe it's best if we don't do anything until it's there. And then that way, whatever we do will be in line with it. It won't be competing with it.
Excellent to hear. Well, I think that also just reinforces, I do think, a little bit of relief at the bottom, around the perimeter of the murals would be, I think would be helpful, because it just reduces parts of it getting blocked or dirty or anything, and really just highlights the mural, let it stand on its own. So those are my comments, Mr. Strickland. Oh, Mr. Westbrook, do you have feedback?
Madam Chair?
Yep.
It's Jay Westbrook. Before Mr. Strickland, could I just key off of your comments and
Sure.
say that I'm aware that you have, on behalf of the commission, devoted time to working with Ms. Smith and the building, and if you could extend that commitment a little further, maybe you could advise us and work with us on the lintel and the ground level as well. I believe I can confidently say that the muralist and Mr. Brett and all of us are eager to receive your input early on before we get onto this. And also Mr. Pettit lives in the neighborhood, so we're going to draw on his input rather consistently as well.
Absolutely. I would be happy to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Offline, but yes.
Oh, yeah, no, I understand.
Mr. Strickland?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I just wanted to follow up on your comments and get some further clarification. It looks from the pictures like the CMU infill panels are flush with the original piers at each bay. Is that correct? Mr. Westbrook, can you confirm that?
That's correct.
Yeah, so with the Luxon prime coat that's going on, will that create more or less a monolithic surface for which the mural will then be applied, to which it'll be applied?
Well, the short answer is yes. And having said that, of course, at this moment, the contrasting material between the cinder block and the metal post certainly show that highlighted difference. But paint itself would be a means by which the post could be, if you will, interjected into the mural. We have talked, and I conveyed, I believe it was your interest, Mr. Strickland, in the previous meeting, to try to maintain the architectural elements of those posts. I mean, obviously they're structurally maintained. It's just giving them an appearance. I think the preference of the artist would be something more along the line of the chair lady's comments, that they maybe not each one being noted because of it creating a kind of container look, within the mural. But there is an active discussion with Mr. Britt to, how to meet the interest of the commission and how to, give reference to those posts.
All right, so yeah, my comment now based on this presentation would be, I think that highlighting those posts would interrupt the continuity of the mural. So personally, I think it would be better to have, a continuous mural and have it framed by that horizontal concrete band. And I do agree with the chairwoman's comments that having some differentiation to create a base, essentially, rather than having the mural go all the way to the ground, might be advantageous. But personally, I really think this project is wonderful. I commend all of the participants for the collaboration, and the final result is spectacular, I think. So I think it's not necessary to highlight those piers because the building has changed so much in terms of architectural representation that it would benefit from the mural just being continuous through those features.
Well, if you would give us a free hand on that, I think that you get unanimous endorsement from the muralist. And yet I do want you to know that, coming into before the commission, we had acknowledged that concern, and we, of course, would, adapt ourselves to the wishes of the commission. But if I think that there is a strong feeling that what you just said, that, we're creating a different dynamic. And Josiah actually mentioned in the local design review that a lot of building treatments are meant to just kind of deflect the eye, or just kind of absorb one element into the others and harmonize it. This is actually dramatically bringing your attention to the building and to the site. And we think it's part of what people have called the transformative element of this, that a place that has been just kind of raced through all of a sudden becomes a place of destination and enjoyment. So we would prefer,
yeah, I agree. So
prefer to
your
have
challenge now is that I provided my input and the chairperson has a different perspective. So
well,
they
she's
seem to be in
devoted.
opposition.
She's devoted, or not devoted, but she's offered a bit of her time, and we'll be eager to accept her input, and I know how respectful she is of the commission too. So we'll find a balance there. And I will say, and the artist can quickly interrupt me if I don't say it well, but they would prefer not to be confined by the kind of cell like element that would be there if you tried to, block out each one of the piers. So it's.
I agree. So maybe our chair can weigh back in and see if she concurs.
Well, I think there can be a balance. I do think there needs to be a little bit of relief to the door and to the base. And I think it's really taking the feedback and modifying the design to try to achieve what is best for the design is always the conversation we have. I think there just needs to be a little relief or to respect some of those building elements. I have no problem with the locations and so forth, but I do think there needs to be a little bit of relief but that's my personal opinion, and that's why there's multiple of us. So we're going to move on to Giancarlo.
Yeah,
You have additional feedback?
I would just like to say that I think, building is not particularly interesting architecturally, in my opinion. And I think in the future, once this mural is completed, it will better be known for the mural than it would for its actual architectural features, I think. So that the mural then will be almost a new statement for this.
Mhm.
And so I think the artist should have freedom. I think our comments are appropriate and I think they're very necessary, but I think we also should allow the artists to have the freedom to do what they think is best. I do have a concern about the doors. You mentioned the doors, Madam Chair, and then and also on the left side of the photograph we're currently looking at, what's happening to that last wall there? That's going to remain blank?
Well, I'm sorry, the slide we have now, if you look to the far right of the shaded area.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's well, it will remain blank, yes. And that really, that little white panel is where the security area begins for the back of the parking. And so, like I said in the very beginning, the first two treatments, the Luxon and the super paint, will wrap around the entire building. So while it'll be blank, it'll be in the paint treatment, including the tent that we'll consult with Mr. Pettit on.
Mm-hmm. What is that white wall for? Is that an opening of some kind?
I believe the answer is no, but Shay it's not, I don't think it's an opening, but Shay?
No, that's just the side of the building. That's the side that leads to the back of the building.
Mm-hmm.
And it's where our gates, when they close, it just comes to that part of the building. But that's actually the side part going down the driveway that leads towards the rear of the property.
Okay.
I don't mean to be rude. I have another commitment that I made known to the Landmarks Commission classroom program that I have to deliver. And so unfortunately, I do have to log off right now, but I do appreciate your time and your consideration.
Thank you for joining us today and telling us about the project. And I'm sure Mr. Westbrook will keep you abreast of how we vote on the project here shortly. So thank you again for your time.
Thanks.
We're going to move on to Miss. Oh, go ahead, Giancarlo.
One more quick question. So who are the two artists? One is Lauren McKenzie, and the other one is Graves.
Brandon Graves. And
Brandon. Okay.
And both
Thank
are
you.
here.
Sorry.
both are present at the presentation.
Okay, so, well, that was, I
Brandon,
guess I have
say
a quick
hello.
question. I have a quick question for them. I mean, are they working together and the entire project, or the project will be divided into two separate arrangements? I'm curious. It's very difficult for two artists to work together. So I'm just curious how the approach is being conducted.
May I speak on this?
Sure.
So Brand and I have been collaborating from the very beginning with the kids. In the design that we did, there's the portrait work of the kids that are going on the front of the building. And we have it split up where we're combining both of our styles. So it'll be cohesive, but also be different and give some variation to it. So the ones that have, you can just see the flat skin tone. Those are the portraits that are going to be done by Brandon. And then the ones that have like two-tone, which is from my Life in Color series style, will be ones that I'll be doing. And then we'll be interchanging with the clothes and the background, and we'll be working on the sides of the buildings together. But all of this has been a collaborative process, kind of fusing both of our styles together so that it feels cohesive and it feels like a group project, basically.
Great. Thank you. Thank you.
I want to let Miss Anderson go next since she hasn't had the opportunity to speak. Go ahead, Miss Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to try to be brief. Just wanted to state that I'm in agreement with you on just keeping the expression of the building throughout all the way to the ground, and maybe acknowledging those piers, or maybe something with the color, bringing them through, if that's at all possible. I think that would keep it from looking like the building is kind of floating on the mural. And also, it is a pretty nondescript building. So I think bringing that, a few of the elements of the building down to that lower level will kind of give it a little more of a statement. I think the building gets lost anyway, because it is sort of a boring building, but I think it would be more balanced if there was some expression of the building all the way down to the ground level. So that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Ms.
Really
I have a
quick, though.
comment.
Sorry.
I had called to switch over to this view because I wanted to see how this view related to the existing piers that's in the building. The comment I was going to make, and it's Miss Lauren, the artist. Oh, there you are. Okay. I'm just wondering, just the edges only. This is just a suggestion. Just the corners, and there's the sign right there, and then the edges, the corner where the opening is, and also the corners where the other end, maybe the piers can be shown. It's acting as the framing or the ending of the artwork. Although it's not a full framing, the lintel part is acting as the top of the frame, and the ground is acting at the bottom. And then you have the piers or columns is acting as the ending part of the frame. Have you looked at that idea?
We have, I think the reason, so the portrait work is going to be over the entire front, and then how you have the love, that's going to actually be on the sides. That whole side sketch is actually just going to be on the side of the building. So the colors that shoot up, they are measured to go where the pillars are. I love the idea of framing because I think then it just breaks up the ground from the art. I don't think the pillars, because it isn't a particularly beautiful building, I think, and also I think, the mission statement is even bigger than the building itself. I think it would take away from the concept, and I don't know. I feel like it would be. I don't know if it would look right, but we do have where the colors go up and down. Those are measured to go where each of the pillars kind of are, so that it kind of coincides with the building, and you can see the kind of the texture of it without having the color interfere with the color itself, if that makes sense.
So you're talking about the colors of the existing building, pier,
Yeah, so
matching
like
with
you
the
see where
color
like
of
the
the
turquoise,
artwork.
yeah, so where the turquoise and yellow and the red are, those will be measured where they go over where the pillars stand currently.
That's very helpful to understand that. I mean, I think if we can respect the architecture and express it in a different way would be a great compromise between things. I do think we need to keep moving on since we are over an hour on this one case. So do we have any new questions or comments, Ms. Anderson? I see your hand up.
That's from before. I'll take it down.
Okay, no problem. Do we have any additional questions or comments, or is someone willing to put forward a motion?
Before the motion is, could you explain the other portion of the project, the lighting? I didn't get a clear understanding of the other aspects of this presentation.
If I may, I'll try to speak briefly to that. Is that lighting and landscaping are not a part of the presentation at this moment, but we're acknowledging that they're going to occur, and we expect to interact with the staff about those elements when we approach that time.
Along with painting the remaining portion of the first floor.
Is this not the same landscape that we approved before, or that we ever approved of the last presentation? When we were doing the presentation for the infill,
well,
the landscape.
Ms. Smith testified earlier that she acknowledges that landscape design, and I believe the intent is to have landscaping of that magnitude. The parking area that you see now is going to be removed. So I'm not sure that every inch of what was presented 2 years ago or something is going to occur, but certainly a significant landscaping treatment that, as a previous commission member pointed out, would help highlight the mural and also give it a kind of protected area.
Those will be returned. You will return. I think those all need to be done with this project, as we've all acknowledged, but you'll return with the comprehensive representation for lighting, landscaping, and the painting of the remaining first floor of the building, correct?
Correct.
So all we're looking at today are the murals and giving feedback on the murals. Are there questions or comments, or would someone like to put forward a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Bailey.
We move approval of the artwork, that the all parties involved will go to staff and work with the chairperson to come with the final solution, or including the building element somehow into the final artwork. That's my motion.
Thank you. So the motion is to approve as presented, to work with staff to coordinate the final solution with the architecture.
I second that.
Thank you. So we have a motion. We have a second. Any further discussion? Right, Mr. Pettit, please call roll and announce the results.
Miss Anderson,
Yes.
Miss Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Bonesi,
Yes.
Mr. Colicchia,
Yes.
Mr. Dryer,
Yes.
Mr. Strickland,
Yes.
Mr. Tarasik, Mr. Tarasik, are you muted? Ms. Trot,
Yes.
Hang on.
Madam Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
Jesus.
Excellent. Thank you. We look forward to this new addition to the neighborhood. We think it's a great proposal, and we look forward to sitting down with you related to the final solution.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the commission. It's been an honor to appear before you, and we greatly appreciate your endorsement. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on
Thank
to
you,
our
Mr. Westbrook.
Nice to see all of you.
Nice to see you too. We'll move on to our next applicant located at 1296 West 6th Street, storefront renovation. Could the applicant please use the raise hand function, unmute your phone, and tell us about your project? Please go ahead. I only see Joe on my screen, so let me, Mr. Berardi, please go ahead. Joe, are you present?
I think he may be having some trouble with the unmute. I can't unmute him from my end.
Okay, Mr. Berardi, do you want to try to call in from a different device to see if you can connect in? Because you look unmuted from our side, but we cannot hear you. Shall we? We'll give it another minute and then we
He
need
said
to
he
move
will try
on.
to call in.
Okay. Oh, there we go. Excellent. We'll give him a second to try to call in, and then if not, we'll move on to the next applicant and come back. I still see him on our screen. In the interest of time, let's why don't we move on to the next one, and we can come back to this as our next case. All right, we'll move on to our third applicant, located at 4344 Lorraine Avenue, renovation.
Hi, I'm Bob Bigger. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
And
Welcome.
I have Antonio Marinucci as well, who can probably give an intro, and then I'll hop in if needed.
Hi, can you guys hear me okay?
We can, thank you.
Okay, cool. Hi, Antonia Marinucci. I am the architect for Bob on this project. The address is 4434 Lorraine Avenue. We are looking for approval on a two-part demolition of the rear portion of the building, as well as renovation, restoration of the front-facing portion of the building pictured here. You can go to the next slide, please. So when we started the initial research, we were a little bit surprised to find that the rear portion of the building is older than we anticipated. It's very nondescript in its existing form. This property, I believe we have dated back to 1865, the original front structure on Lorraine. It was the non-family funeral home since the mid-1860s and was until fairly recently, the last few decades. So that the building functioned as a undertaker and then later funeral home for many decades. So you can see from the progression, the 1881 map, the pink building in that black box is the one that faces Lorraine that we're concerned about the restoration of. And then in the 1886 map, you can see where they started making additions and modifications to the rear or northern part of the site. Next slide, please. And continued evidence of that, 1912 and the 1927 to 37 maps to continue to show the progression of the property with, again, that pink, the pink portion of the building being the front-facing structure. And then the screenshot of today's satellite view. Next slide, please. And then to begin to orient, it's a little bit of a conglomeration and a little difficult to determine you know, how these pieces sort of fit together. They don't fit together that elegantly. So you have the two-story gabled structure that will remain. It's the white building with a slate roof. So you're seeing that from Lorraine looking east and then Lorraine looking west. And then you can start to, in that western facing view, see the areas that we would like to propose demolition, various entries and awnings. The building in its most recent life was a daycare for about 20 years prior to Bob's ownership. So there's been kind of some modifications both for a modern functioning funeral home as well as the daycare, including all those various entries and awnings that are on the eastern portion. And then you can see the one-story rear addition that we are also asking to be demolished. And then if you look at the West 45th views, you can see the rear of the building. You can see the one-story portion, the 1.5-story gabled addition that isn't visible from Lorraine, as well as a cinder block garage. Those are all part of the demolition proposal. Next slide, please. Here is an existing site plan to show how those pieces come together from like a roof plan perspective. The property, if you can tell the parcel line that's a little bit darkened, it's kind of a conglomeration, I think, of 6 different parcels, creating quite a large site from the Lorraine portion and then to the West 45th facade. So you can see that there is, I'm trying to label everything via the dates that they were added to be clear on it. The 2-story gabled structure circa 1865 to remain and be restored. And then that hard line to demo everything behind it. Various 1-story addition and awnings. The 1-story addition in this early 1880s. The 1.5-story gabled addition early 1880s. And then the garage, we're not sure, but no evidence in that 1930s map. So beyond that point. Next slide, please. And then what would the resultant site plan would essentially be a large chunk of this property would be used for future development. We don't have immediate plans. Bob is exploring a bunch of different options. A lot of what we feel makes sense would be residential along the 45th axis and perhaps a new retail structure to infill between the existing 2-story structure that we'll save and the Sunoco gas station that's on the corner of Lorraine and 44th to front Lorraine. But as there are no plans, we are just showing this as the resultant. And then next slide, please. And again, a screenshot to help try to orient how this site fits in. You can see the Sunoco gas station on plan, so the plan right, and then on the plan left along the hugging the actual corner of 45th and Lorraine is an auto body shop, as well as like another vacant building that are not part of this property, not in Bob's control. Next slide. So then we also wanted to present an interim site plan to show what the intention of the property will be until it's ready for future development, knowing that that process could take a couple years and that we would certainly be back in front of you guys with those plans. So majority of the site currently is fenced in and is paved for parking. The former footprint of the building we would just propose to be seeded for future use. Installing a new privacy fence and enclosing what would be a retail patio on that Lorraine face. There is a historic gate that you'll see more photos and information on as we move through the presentation that will sort of hug the Lorraine facade, and then just adding new planting beds to buffer between that Lorraine sidewalk and the Sunoco gas station. Again, in the interim, there is a very broad curb cut on Lorraine into this property that we would like to remove to satisfy the PRO that we are in as well. Next slide, please. So we would just like to propose a pretty simple planting schedule for the interims bedding with just greenery, sage, boxwoods, kind of a gradation to, like we said, provide some of that privacy between this property and the Sunoco station while not impeding any of the visibility for drivers coming out of that parking lot, and softening that edge, breaking up the pavement that currently exists a bit more. Next slide. This is looking at the existing first floor and second floor plans. Just so you can see kind of where that, again, that demo line is. Something interesting about the structure is that the 1.5 story gable that is to the rear, they've created this really elongated shotgun, I think 5 or 6 bedroom apartment that spans the second floor of the building that we want to keep, as well as the building that we want to remove. So that is illustrated here. All the other portions of the building that we want to remove are 1 story. Next slide. And then this is the resultant. We would like to white box the front facing building to Lorraine for future retail. And you can see sort of how that retail patio would work. It's well suited for that. It would satisfy the PRO. We do not have a tenant yet, and would, assume some of the other requirements, like, for signage and stuff that we would be back for once that's in place. And then the second floor would just become a 2 bedroom apartment. Next slide. So something that was interesting about the structure that we were trying to piece together is how the Lorraine facade came to be. It was clearly not what we suspected was not original to the 1865 construction. And then a local historian reached out to Bob last week or the week before and had put the pieces together for us that there had been a renovation in 1926, which gave us this sort of French inspired facade, which as it is today. So the goal would be to just restore. It has a lot of that, almost all the 1926 detail remains. So there's a copper ridge gap, slate roof, a dental fascia and soffit. There's the entry door and entry facade, and we have reason to believe that the color palette that is there today is quite similar to what it was in the 1920s. So we're showing a suggestion of the palette direction. We are engaging with storefront, so we would come back to you guys with to the local design committee with our final paint and window colors once we work through with them, though I feel pretty comfortable with this sort of direction that we're presenting here as being accurate to the 1926 renovation. Next slide, please. East elevation, the goal once the additions, the awnings and entryways that we'd like to remove come off is to restore what we hope is still the brick beneath. We'll have to Also restoring original arched casement windows that are on the east and west facade, and replacing the existing double hungs with aluminum clad wood. Kind of some of the modifications that would probably not be consistent with what was originally here are filling a second floor sliding glass door that walks out onto the existing awnings, kind of in a very unsafe way, with just a double hung structure or window structure. We don't think that that opening was original. There's no header to match the others. And then on the first floor, filling in former interior openings as rear access door for the retail space, as well as an entry point to the apartments above. Next slide, please. And then the west facade is mostly, it is exposed, so we can see what we're dealing with, and that is a pretty strict restoration effort with those arched casement windows, replacements of the double hungs, and just repair and as needed to that slate roof. Next slide, please. So I wanted to just be thorough. We didn't have a good turnout for our demo walkthrough. Ms. Anderson was the only representative, Bob and me and Carl. So I wanted to make sure I had a lot of extra photos. So I'll just zoom through these guys unless committee members would like to, look at anything in particular, but this is the existing conditions. Those are where I was trying to explore the existing paint studies. Before we had dated the 1926, I had doubted how accurate those could be, but now knowing that the renovation is less than 100 years old, I think that I feel more confident in the paint colors. So these are the interior. This is the portion of the building that we are hoping to demolish. As you can see, very nondescript linoleum, drop ceiling. This is the interior of the second floor portion that we'd like demolished, which is the bedroom half of the weird shotgun apartment. Again, very nondescript, nothing of historic value in remaining. This is the part that we do want to keep. Clearly a gut job. So again, nondescript. I'm sure we're going to have a decent amount of structural discoveries when we go through here on these floor plates. And then this is the first floor of the building that we do want to retain. So this will become the white box space for future retail. And it is in, again, this pretty good disrepair, but also nondescript in its historic quality, meaning that there is none. Carl, I assume this is your portion?
Yes, this would be Kai's.
Okay.
Thank you for the presentation. We'll move on to the staff review of from the site visit. So either Carl or Don, would you like to tell us about the site visit?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It was a last minute site visit, but I'm basically going to show a lot of the same stuff that was just seen, but using the history that was given to us, 1865 to 1866, it was established, non-funeral home established on Lorraine Avenue. And then 1868, 1869, wooded, beamed, faced with brick. And I think that might be the original building here. So we're in those 1860s. And then also the barns and the carriage houses were built, the original ones. 1875, Isidore Nunn got a permit for a coffin and hearse. Let's see. 1906, the Nunn Funeral Home becomes the first in Cleveland to use a motorized hearse in a funerary service. 1926, the remodeling, and George S. Ryder is the architect. 1932, another addition. So that's your, this garage, I believe. This was an interesting discovery as we were going through it. It gave us some questions as to what was going on here, because this looks like an exterior wall. And when we were looking, comparing with the maps, it appears that the original outbuildings were encompassed into the new carriage house. So they completely swallowed it up, and left it intact inside. So this interior space, even though interior to this has been altered a couple of times, and I think this is where the bathrooms are now, original structure remains inside. And I believe from the notes that happened in 1958 and 59. And then you can see out on top of the roof here, and then some more of the interior spaces that we toured. Don't think the windows are to code. And then that's all I have there. I think the only thing that we had mentioned is salvage of the sign for the number. I don't think we identified anything else that would be worthy of salvage at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl, for that. Do we have feedback from the local committee?
Hi, good morning, Madam Chair and members of the commission. For those of you that don't know, I'm Donna Gregonis, the Director of Neighborhood Development for Ohio City and Tremont Development Corporations. So this was viewed at the local committee and it was approved unanimously as presented, and people on the committee had a lot of positive things to say about the incorporation of the plantings and keeping the fence in the interim while they figure out what the overall plan is. So this was positively received at the local committee. So thank you.
Thank you for that feedback. We'll move on and open the floor for the commission for questions and comments. Mr. Bonesi?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Could we go to the site plan? First off, I want to, Ms. Marinucci, I just want to commend you on like a really fabulous presentation with clear drawings that are really quite beautiful in themselves. And I'm really in support of the project as a whole, because seeing the amalgamation of things, it's like crazy to think what's happened to this poor building in its lifetime. And I also want to echo the local design review committee and what they applauded, which is that, you know, in the time that you're going to take to figure out what you want to do with the property, that you're taking the care to re-soften the site and, you know, still be in consideration of, you know, how it's going to affect the community for the next 2 or 3 years while you're making these decisions. But overall, my comments are very positive. The drawings are very clear about the renovations you wanted to do, which all seem, in my opinion, to be in order. I love that you did the research of trying to figure out what the colors might have been, and I know staff will work to make sure those colors are just right. But I am in full support, and thank you for such a clear and clean presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you for that feedback, Mr. Bonesi. Other questions or comments or feedback from the commission? I will interject mine also here, and then I'll move on to Ms. Anderson, who just put her hand up. I echo what was just said. You know, I think this is, I appreciate that you are maintaining this building and trying to restore it to its, you know, original intent, you know, of retail and or you know, having the apartment upstairs. My only comment would be related to the front elevation. I personally feel that the window as shown is probably not appropriate, that I'm assuming you're working within the existing opening and installing something that's a little bit more aligned with the windows and the remainder of the building is what I would recommend, either a double hung or 2 casements like is above. I'm sorry, yeah, it's so that it works. You're not introducing a 4th type of window on here, because you know you have your more decorative windows on the sides and your double hungs, and here you have casements, and to introduce just a flat fixed storefront window, I think would take away from the project. So I would recommend that you reconsider that window type, but you do say the style is TBD. So I would just ask you to bring that back to staff once you determine it.
Yeah, that's absolutely the intention, and I totally agree. I will be leaning on Tim Barrett's help with determining what's the most appropriate thing for that. And it was purposefully kind of left vague because that one is a bit of a head scratcher for me. So stylistically, but I definitely agree. And that is the intention to come back.
Yeah, I think
Excellent.
that's just the one that's existing is what's shown. That's not our intention to replace it as a single
Okay.
pane.
Excellent. I thought it was a double hung in the photo, but either way, I know working with staff for the final colors and the final style of the window would satisfy me. Ms. Anderson, you have feedback? Ms. Anderson, you're still on mute if you're asking.
I'm sorry, I muted.
There you go.
I muted and I muted again. Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with your comments on the windows. I did attend the site visit, and most of those structures, those add-ons are in a pretty advanced state of disrepair, and they're not contributing. So I fully support this project and moving forward with the demolition and the modifications that you are proposing here. Those are my comments.
Excellent. Thank you for those comments. Other questions, comments, or feedback from the commission? Would someone like to put forward a motion? Mr. Bonazi?
Yes, I'll put forward a motion. I move that we approve the project as presented, given that the final colors and the final window style just be confirmed with staff.
Excellent. Thank you for the motion.
I
Do we have
second
a
that.
second? Thank you, Giancarlo. We have a second. Any further discussion? None? All right. Mr. Pettit, please call roll and announce the results.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Ms. Bailey,
Yes. Yes.
thank you. Mr. Bonezzi,
Yes.
Mr. Colicchio,
Yes.
Mr. Dryer,
Yes.
Mr. Strickland,
Yes.
Mr. Tarasik,
Yes.
Ms. Trent.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
Excellent. Thank you. We look forward to seeing your project move forward.
Thanks so much, guys.
Yeah, thanks everyone. We'll be back.
Thanks. We will now move back to our second applicant, the storefront renovation at 1296 West 6th Street.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Apologize for that. We reset the microphone. I'd like to thank everyone, Madam Chair, members of the commission, Mr. Pettit. You have Melissa Spires with Berardi Partners and myself, Joe Berardi, representing the Fitch family. We are presenting the 1296 West 6th Street project. It's the interior renovation, and what we're seeking is approval on storefront replacement. Within the image that you're looking at right now, it's the bottom two bays to the right of the red brick building. Looking at replacing both bays with new storefronts. Next slide, please. This is just a contextual map showing the approximate location of the building in relation to West 6th and West State Fair Street, just north of Public Square. Part of the idea behind the renovation is a multi-phase project addressing phase one first, which is a restaurant and bar establishment. Phase two will be addressing change of use, which would address providing approximately eight dwelling units, creating a residential occupancy above, and then potentially a third phase at some point in time would be the remaining retail space, which may be done in conjunction with phase two. It's still kind of up in the air at the moment. Next slide, please. This is just a basic floor plan of the proposed use. Largely a restaurant space with a bar. And what we're really focused on right now for the presentation is the storefronts, the already via image. Next slide. This is an enlarged image showing the current configuration and condition of the building, which is largely vacant, with the exception of the far left, which is a spa. Next slide. Prior to us presenting to landmarks, we worked through the warehouse district and worked through trying to find historic images so that we could refine the design configuration of the proposed storefront. And these are some of the historic images that we were able to find in conjunction with working with Mr. Pettit. Unfortunately, there were no clear shots of the original configuration. Next slide. However, we believe the configuration that closely represents what was historically there are these next few slides. You can kind of see on the far left image that the storefront had a narrow transom with a large storefront, and then you are able to see the man door leading into the space of M&M Clothers, approximately a 7-foot door with a larger transom, which doesn't necessarily align with what was just to the left. Next slide. Additional images from roughly the 1990s. Next slide. This is a clear image of M&M Clothers showing the narrow transom above with the taller transom just to the right of M&M Clothers, which kind of shows the lack of continuity between the two. But we believe that this is probably about the closest image that we can find that represents some sort of historic condition for the building. Next slide. And this was a storefront replacement that occurred, early 2001. Next slide. Just additional images. Next slide. What we proposed to landmarks, to warehouse initially was two options. One looking at a 2-panel, one looking at a 3-panel system. Prior to talking to warehouse district, I did consult with the state historic preservation office on conceptually what would be approved and appropriate for storefront replacement, noting that this is a conventionally funded project and historic tax credits would not be utilized, so we would not go through the tax credit process through SHPO and NPS. However, we're trying to implement strategies and concepts that would be similar to what would be approved ultimately by SHPO and NPS. And what you're looking at is just the existing configuration. The lower bulkhead, the 2 bays are not consistent. You can kind of see a yellow brick and then a green painted OSB along with fire department connections, some gas vents, some miscellaneous items, associated with the space, which ultimately be relocated. Next slide. Again, this is part of the 2 options that we discussed with warehouse district. The image to the left is showing a 2-panel system. The image to the right is showing a 3-panel system. Ultimately, what was approved through warehouse district was a 2-panel system, largely based on maintaining the historic configuration. Also, taking a look at viewable glass. The image to the left is roughly about 100 square feet of glass. The image to the right is providing approximately 85 square feet of glass. So it's about 15%, approximately 15% difference in viewable glazing for the operable system, which is a nanowall system. The nanowall system, we've worked through with the manufacturer. For the 2-panel system, was limited to approximately 8 feet of operable width or height with 4-foot panels. Panels at the top would be fixed transoms, so the operable system would be approximately 8 by 8. To the right, be approximately 8 foot by approximately 10 foot operable system. Unfortunately, through conversations with Mr. Pettit, along with warehouse district, it was determined that the 3-panel system just wasn't conducive to, you know, maintaining the appropriate historic appearance. I think ultimately the client prefers the 3-panel system just on the operable system that creates larger opening. However, you know, understanding that, you know, we do have limitations defined by warehouse district and landmarks, along with providing additional glazing area. You know, option 1 seems most appropriate at this time, which is what we're looking at. Some of the key features are, you know, providing a bottom bulkhead, which will be provided with insulated government panel, creating that solid configuration that's similar to what's historically there. We'll have clear glazing on the upper portion with fixed transoms, and what we're also looking at is creating a consistent transom line of approximately 8 foot. So the doors would be increased to 8 foot as opposed to 7 foot. Slight deviation from what was historically there, what was assumed to be historically there. And we believe that creating that continuity across the entire storefront system seems appropriate, in keeping with, you know, the ideas and philosophies of FPS. Next slide. This is just an enlarged plan view showing the different options of configuration. Next slide. These are just details showing structural configuration. Again, we're focused on option number 1, the 2-panel system, with the 8-foot tall operable system, as opposed to option 2, which has approximately a 10-foot system. Next slide. These are just detailed components from Manowal manufacturers that we're looking at. Next slide. These are just structural configurations, further depicting the conditions of the systems. Option 1, which has a pronounced transom bar running horizontal with the system. Option 2 has a larger transom bar at the top of the system, which creates a heavy line across the system at 10 feet, 10 foot 10. Next slide. And these are just 3D images showing the system for option 1, closed system, and as it is open. Next slide. This is what system 2 looks like with the 3-panel system, both closed and open. Next slide. This is a rendering showing the system as a 2-panel system, open. Next slide. And this shows it 3-panel system closed. And you can kind of see that with the 3-panel system, there's a heavy vertical line that's pretty repetitive with a narrow transom bar. Part of the discussion that we had with Warehouse District was creating a phase plan for the second, third phases of the project, which would ultimately replace the storefronts just to the left in first 2.5 days. Next slide. This is just a 2D elevation. And of note, we're still working through the design configuration for the second bay to the right. As opposed to having 4 operable doors, we're looking at having 2 doors in the center with fixed panels on either side, creating side-like condition. We're exploring whether that center bay with the 2 operable doors would be recessed similar to what's currently there. Next slide. And this just shows the 3-panel system with the remaining elevation. I think that's it.
Thank you for the presentation. Do we have feedback from the local committee?
Yes, good morning. It's Tom Stransky from Historic Warehouse District for the Historic Downtown Cleveland Design Review Committee. We approved option 1. It's on the screen now. There was a lot of discussion about the pros and cons of the different concepts, but we ultimately decided this was the best in terms of transparency, which is the goal of our committee, is that with these great operable storefronts that is a great evolution of the storefronts for modern day use. We still want when they're closed to be to appear transparent and as much like the original storefront as possible. We also recognize, you'll notice in our motion that on the two southernmost bays, the transom line, excuse me, has a little bit, the transom line will change a little bit with the new storefronts that we're approving today. And so that it's strongly recommended by our committee that when they renovate those two bays or one of the other two bays, that they both get done for cost efficiency, but also for aesthetics. So we don't all of a sudden have three different versions of the storefront. And so with that motion for option one was approved unanimously. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you for that feedback. We will then move on. Do we have anyone else to speak on behalf of the project from the city? Okay, then we'll move on and open the floor up for the commission for questions and comments. Questions and comments from the commission?
I have a comment, I just couldn't find my raised hand.
Go ahead.
And I just want to know the thickness of the framing compared to the existing. Is that okay with the local design review? Because it seemed a little thicker.
We were okay with it just because of the functionality of the nano system. And, you know, while we believe that the southernmost bay is the most historic version, there's no conclusive evidence that it actually is. So we were okay with the variation in that, yes.
Does that answer your question, Ms. Bailey?
It did answer, yes, and my question. So option one is that it opens up the door during the summer. Okay, I see. All right, that's it.
Yeah, that's correct.
Thanks,
yeah,
Ms.
thank you.
Bailey. Mr. Bonazzi?
Thank you,
Oh.
Madam Chair. Oh, was someone trying to say
Joe,
something?
I think you were trying to say something. You're a little light on my side, so I didn't hear that you were trying to talk. Go ahead.
Oh, my apologies. I think the idea, we went through, several discussions with Warehouse District regarding this. While we're, seeking to have a, largely open system, I think largely speaking, the system will be in a closed, appearance, much like an image to the left, as opposed to being open. So predominantly speaking, it'll be a summertime, late spring, early fall, where it's going to be open. So we felt like option one really provided the most glazing as opposed to option two, which minimized glazing due to the vertical elements.
Thank you for that feedback. That's helpful. Mr. Bonazzi, any questions or comments?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I am in full agreement with the local design review committee that I think option one's the best way to go. As much as I am a personal favorite towards verticality, I think the loss of glazing is just in option two is gonna be unacceptable. So I agree here that option one was the best choice to go with, and also the use of the other comment from the local design review, which is that when the renovation happens for these southern two bays, that it should be stated somewhere that they should do both of them at the same time, because the last thing we'd want is to then suddenly show up with, three different window systems. But yes, I just wanted to echo my support and I'm tripping over my words today. I support it. Simple as that.
Excellent. Thank you for that feedback. Ms. Bailey, you have additional questions?
Yeah, I found my raised hand, but that's not the reason for my comment. I do have one question for the architect. So, the floor level, the doors open, So, is this floor level, is it raised up a little, or is it actually flush or level with the ground, exterior ground level? So whereas the water won't be flowing inside the inside. So I just want you to answer that question.
So that's actually a good question. It's something that we spoke a lot about with the warehouse commission. We're still working through the solution and working with the city on, what that really looks like, given that, the sidewalk is technically part of the right of way. There is a lift on the building, so it's more pronounced on the further right of image 1. We have a flush ADA condition further to the left of the image, so it provides, an accessible means of entrance and egress through the space. We're looking at a couple different options of what we can do to improve accessibility with the enamel system. But the lift does prevent water from migrating in. So from that perspective, it's very helpful having that ledge, but from accessibility, it does pose a small challenge that we're still working through.
Excellent. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments from the commission? I'll just give my comment of support that I think this is an appropriate solution, as the local had said, to try to respect the architecture but bring it to modern uses and needs. So I agree with the recommendation to proceed with option 1 and the requirement or recommendation that if you renovates the additional 2 bays, that they're done at the same time and match these heights, so that you'll bring the building back to its original continuity across the entire elevation. So I think that's my feedback. Also, do we have any additional questions or comments from the commission, or would someone like to put forward a motion?
I put forward a motion.
Go ahead, please.
Move the application as presented. That's my motion. I didn't hear any other comments added to it.
And that's for option 1? Yeah, we're moving forward with option 1.
Option 1 on the screen.
Move the application and approve option 1 as presented.
So we have a motion. Do we have I'll state with the one condition stated by the local of returning in for the Southern Bay renovation and recommending that they align with the design on the Northern Bays. So
including the condition.
So motion with one condition. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. We have a second. Any further discussion? No? All right. Mr. Pettit, please call roll and announce the results.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Ms. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Bonezzi,
Yes.
Mr. Colicchia, Mr. Colicchia, are you on mute? Mr. Dryer,
Yes.
Mr. Strickland,
Yes.
Mr. Tarasik,
Yes.
Ms. Trott.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Excellent. Good luck with your project. We look forward to seeing it you move forward.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to our next applicant, located, oh, there we go, 1934 East 123rd Street, demolition. Could the applicant use the raise hand function? You can open your mic, announce yourself, and tell us about your project. Welcome,
Hello,
Mr.
hi.
Linsky.
Yeah, this is Andrew. Good. Oh no, it's still good morning. Good morning, everyone. I think the next on the agenda is the demo, correct? Out of the two, and I know that the site visit was done last year, I believe, in June of 2020. I guess.
If I could, hi there. This is Ryan with Grassroots Architecture. If I can interject. Good morning, Andrew. Good morning,
Yeah,
board.
thanks. Good morning, Brian. I know I
Chair
was
Lady.
waiting for you to chime in.
I understand the demo's next. It's the design of the townhouse that is up first, and the demo's next. Either way, those I'd like to go through the project itself, update you on our progress, get your feedback as a result, and then because these two are tied together. I feel like I understand we're not demoing anything until you get a design that you feel is appropriate. So if we could, I'll run through the presentation for you. And but before we start, I just wanted to address a couple things. We were before you already at one time for this project, and we were also went before the local design review twice, secured their approval at both occasions and final approval at the last. And kind of generally, what we really talked about was the things that we had or revise or interpret differently was essentially the appropriateness of the unit that faces on 123rd Street. At our conceptual design level, we hadn't really reworked that unit out well enough, so it was addressing the street better, addressing the context better, and the function of that unit wasn't quite up to speed with the balance of the project and its relationship to the street. So I feel that we've done those investigations well, and you'll see that we've modified that appropriately. We also had to incorporate and review the City of Cleveland's townhouse zoning standards. Those frankly affect some of the site and mostly that front unit. So you'll see that we've addressed, and I think I understand we're compliant, working with Kyle Reese, that we're compliant with all the townhouse zoning regulations, and you'll see how that has impacted the design. And finally, we were asked by the local design review and this board to investigate just some general design issues. There was a discussion of the color of the building, the size of the balconies, the roof line. Some of the paired gabled bays were a little uncomfortable. So as we work through this presentation, I'll show you what the results of those investigations based on your comments have brought us to. So this image here that you're seeing on the screen is really about the context of the neighborhood. What you're seeing is the west, at the top of the screen is the west elevation of 123rd Street. The red kind of parallelograms, if you will, depicted on the street view are enlarged in the images above. And the east side of 123rd is at the lower half of the screen, just to start to get a sense of the materiality of the street and the size and scale and proportion of the surrounding neighborhoods. Most significant is the kind of boxed image on the far left upper, where that's the newest townhouse in the neighborhood, townhouse development in the neighborhood. One of the two new ones on this street. And we acknowledge this fact after doing the evaluation and our design, that we are one of the taller buildings on 123rd Street. And we didn't win that competition. The townhouse project that I just pointed out, they are the tallest. They've got us beat by a couple feet. But the top of our peak, as you'll see, is upwards of 35 feet. The midpoint of our roof, that I think is generally discussed as the height of a gabled roof, is at 32 feet. So we're not a small building, but we were hopeful that you can see from these images that the neighborhood isn't comprised of small single family 16-foot wide houses, but there's some significant size. So next slide, please. Thank you. And I won't linger on the plans much. The plans of the typical unit. So there's 5 units on the site. There's 2 buildings, 4 units in the front, 3 units in the front building, 2 units in the back building. They're separated by some visitor parking and a small green space. But all I'd like to note is on the plans, this is the typical unit. And in the unit that it faces 123rd, you'll see that there is actually livable space at the right side of this unit, and we've pushed the stair back to the back where the laundry is in this one, just really to activate those spaces at the front. And you'll see that we've enlarged some of the patios and stuff. So if you go to the next slide, please. This is the second floor of the typical unit, straightforward, all living space. Next. And the upper floor, the third floor, 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, 2 closets, and a stair. Groundbreaking design, really. So this is that first front unit. So you'll see immediately that there is now a flex room on the first floor. We've got an expanded porch that faces this front, some generous, let's call it, inviting steps to the first floor, and the stairs pushed kind of out of the way. Next, please. This is the upper floor, more expansive than the first unit. We've got kind of this 3-sided stair with an opening in the center to connect the first and second floor. We've tucked the powder room, if you can call that tucked. We've tucked the door of the powder room a little out of the way. We've enlarged the deck. The deck now covers the first floor porch in its entirety. And we've engaged kind of the front of the building with some larger, more generous windows to let light in from the outside to the dining and kitchen area and views to the outside. And finally, the third floor plan, please. Again, 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, some closets, and a stair. So the next screen, if I could show you what this kind of turns out like on the site. Again, upper right corner is a 3-unit building. Upper left corner is a 2-unit building. You can start to, and what we did do with working with planning, we've not only incorporated the townhouse zoning requirements for the city of Cleveland that are currently on the books, but we also worked with Kyle and discussed what is potentially going to be on the next round of improvements, or at least changes to that townhouse zoning. And Kyle made those clear to us. We made the commitment to do those. So for example, you'll see in the kind of the front right, first of all, the primary thing is you'll see the orange section of the drive and the little fingers that kind of go up toward the building. Those are all concrete pavers to make this more of a, we'd like it to feel more like a pedestrian way that vehicles are allowed to ride on, as opposed to a concrete driveway where you feel a little nervous walking to the back unit if you're doing so. 2 visitor parkings in the center. We've started to suggest where exterior, like utility stuff goes, where the air conditioning units are, where landscaping groupings may go. And also part of the criteria is if you see kind of toward the front of the drive, you'll see a little note that says mailbox and screen. So we've tucked a couple air conditioning units in there and put up a wood screen that matches the materials of the building. And that's where, you know, the mailboxes for the units will be. Next slide, please. This is the second floor, just to show you how the buildings kind of go together. The exterior balconies on all of these have been enlarged so people aren't completely tucked away between walls. They can at least lean their head out and get a view toward the street. Next, please. Thank you, Carl. This is the upper floor plan, just to show you how the bedrooms in those buildings go together. And next, please, Carl. Thank you. So here's the elevations. We've done a couple things, and I don't know if how familiar you are with the last round. The significant changes are we've kind of mirrored one of the units or 2, so we don't have paired gables anymore. We thought that was a great suggestion. We think separating the gables makes a strong design element. We've tweaked some of the roof structural design, so the roofs are a little monolithic, and I hope I don't say that in a negative way, but it was significantly kind of chopped up and ups and downs on the primary roof structure based on some bays that are on the backside of the building. But it's been kind of uniform. You see in the lower right-hand corner of the upper image, you'll start to see where the mailboxes are and that screening. You can see where all the decks and the patios are. The materials are asphalt shingles, fiber cement panels on the 2 accent colors. One's a wood look and one's a painted, let's call it a dark putty. And if I could draw your attention to the bottom right elevation, that is the 123rd Street elevation. There's actually, I don't know if you can see it well on your screen, but there's 2 colors on those bays. And then beyond that, you can see the wood look fiber cement panels. So both of those that face 123rd are going to be painted fiber cement. The first is kind of a grayish blue. Beyond that is a dark brown. And then the balance of the building, once you get beyond that first unit, will be vinyl siding, and the vinyl siding is again in this blue and putty colors. The front building is primarily putty with an accent of blue on the front, and the rear building is essentially the blue. So the colors work well together, and we've kind of put a little bit on both to hope that they're married. And the final page, please. I'm sorry, two more. This is the rear elevation, if I can call it the rear. It's actually the north elevation on the top. It faces the larger apartment building to the north of us, and the bottom elevation is actually the rear. It's the west elevation. It faces kind of the interior of the block. And you can hopefully start to see in the upper picture where this kind of blue color is to the front, 123rd Street is to the left in this image, and then the putty color on that first building, and then the final building is the same color as the front of the first building, that bluish. Now the final sheet, please. So here's what we see as people, really, and not just as in elevations. The most telling picture, I think, is the one in the upper right-hand corner. This is what you'd see from across the street on 123rd Street. You're looking at that front unit. You can see how we've reconfigured the front porch. It's larger, generous set of steps. We've introduced some columns and a wood beam, and to support the enlarged balcony / roof that's above. You can see the gables as they march down the side of the street. And we're real happy that we've extended, based on the suggestions from the local design review, to extend those patios that are in the rears of the building. And so those kind of stick out a little bit, and I think that adds some interest to the visual on this side of the building. The balance of the images are just something, views from above, so you can start to get an understanding of the context and other imagery of the project. That is what we have for you today. Appreciate the time. Look forward to your comments.
Would you mind going through the demolition? We do have a new commission member. Just give us an overview of what's being demolished, and then briefly,
sure.
and then we can move on to feedback on both. Since
Absolutely.
they do go hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
Madam Chair, I just want to point out that we did not include the site visit photos in this presentation. We thought you'd seen plenty of that at the last meeting. I would just reiterate that the previous owner of this property took the roof off maybe a year ago, and so there was extensive structural and interior damage. But beyond that, it was our determination that the house was not significant, that it had been significantly altered over time. We didn't think there was anything worth salvaging in the building. So it's staff's opinion that the demolition is justified, and I'd just like to point out, in the meantime, it's become something of a nuisance. So we fully support the demolition, unfortunately. But I think you've seen enough that the existing house is not, in my opinion, no great loss.
Thank you for that. Going through that again. Mr. Bonezzi, were you here on the commission when we reviewed this project last?
Yes, I was. I believe it was a week or two ago. But I actually took my own personal effort to go when I was over in Little Italy the other night to walk down the street and see this house. And I don't need to be too graphic, but this poor house. So I agree with staff and everyone. This is a sad little house.
Okay, excellent. Is there anyone else on the commission who was not present during the review of the demolition previously? If everyone was present, we can move on to feedback on the new townhouse development in respect of everybody's time.
Madam Chair, I'd just like to point out that Ray Christosic is here from the Design Review Committee to give the report. And I would also add that we have a letter of support for the entire project from Councilman Griffin.
Excellent, thank you. Well, if everyone was here previously about the for the presentation of the demolition, then we'll move on to that feedback. So Ray, would you like to tell us about the feedback from the local committee?
Good morning. Yes, we support the demolition. The previous owner who sold the property to Andrew, in our opinion, intentionally kind of destroyed the existing house. When we did the site visit back in 20, we felt that it should be, we were okay with the demolition because the condition was so far gone. But we were not, we were trying to work through to come up with a design that fit within the context of the neighborhood and thought was a good product. The previous owner who was working through that process was kind of clueless in how to go about it, and we are very glad that Andrew and Ryan have taken on this project. I think they've done a good job in coming up with something that's very nice. The site is not easy because of the existing properties on either side, and they were very diligent in trying to make the building work on that site. Like when I'm speaking of the building to the right, the 2-story kind of it was an old store one time. Their property actually encroaches on their driveway, and they did a nice job of still providing them access to their drive. And it also, I think they pushed it off the lines where it doesn't really adversely affect either property on either side. I think the design is nice. Everything that we've asked them to do, they've been very agreeable and made those changes regarding the porch, the roof lines. We think that the separating the building from the 6 units, which was originally shown, to the 5 that we have now there with the space, kind of gives some relief to the adjoining property owners. So we overwhelmingly or unanimously support the demolition, and we approved the design at our meeting earlier in June. So we think it's a good project. It's for sale, which is also something we strive for, and we're, like I said, okay with the demolition, even though we don't like to lose houses, but in this case, I think it's the right move. So we're good. We like the project. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you for that feedback. We will then open the floor for the commission for questions or comments. Mr. Strickland, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think that this project is an excellent representation of, what we intend to do, providing useful comments to applicants and then having them, understand our questions and concerns, and then successfully just make those minor modifications to the project that really enhance the project so that it's a win-win situation for the intent of this commission and the neighborhood that's being impacted by these developments. So I think the stepping of the roof line is appropriate and helps to scale down the appearance of the project on the street. I think the building materials are appropriate. I don't have a problem with the vinyl siding being used in the back, but having the cement fiberboard in the front is a plus. So yeah, done a great job in reacting to our initial comments, and I fully support the project.
Excellent. Thank you for that feedback. Other feedback from the commission? Ms. Bailey?
I noticed you're using light on windows. Could you explain, are you using 100% light on windows, or is it certain elevations are you using by the windows and the others as a aluminum framing? Could you explain that?
Sure. Currently, we're proposing vinyl windows and the whole project. Is that okay?
Well, I would try to encourage the applicant to use aluminum framing, but on certain elevation, you can just try to have you use vinyl. So you could just look at certain elevation that you can just use aluminum cladding. So I'm trying to look at which elevation that's a significant view elevation that's more significant that for that, whereas the rest of it can just be vital. So maybe Commissioner can just assist me with that one, because I'm looking at more of that elevation with the garage, but that's more facing toward the away from the street, hiding. So it's kind of a little challenging on this one. So
The
in other
primary is
words,
facing the street.
if you have a main front elevation, that would be a good idea, place to put it. Whereas anything hidden, then you can put the vinyl, but this is not the case. So
I think where you're going, Miss Bailey, is usually the street fronting elevations and more visible elevations from the street are where we often require aluminum clad versus vinyl on restorations and sometimes on new construction. Is that where you're going? And if so,
but this is all new,
right?
So it's different in this case. Otherwise, I like this project, and I like that you limiting the colors as well. So you have different, like 2 tones. So, but thanks for the clarification, Madam Chair, because this is more of a new construction. So maybe you don't really have to use the limited clad, just use all vinyls instead.
Thank you, Ms. Bailey. If I could just respond quickly, the image that's shown, the bottom right corner, is the East 123rd Street elevation. Then on the upper side, on the upper image in this that you see on your screen, that unit extends to essentially the left side of that first wood look bay, and on the opposite side, again, it goes back about the same distance. If it's okay, I would like to, in the interest of cost, I would like to stay with vinyl. In the interest of consistency, I would like to stay with vinyl. So if you can imagine that, let's say if we did want to do an aluminum clad, I would be uncomfortable just doing the front of the building, because then the people living in that unit would have 2 different window types in their building, in their house. And if we did go to aluminum clad on the front unit, then there would be an inconsistency in that building. So I feel, and part of the goal, if I could step back to a few thousand feet above, part of Andrew's goal when he committed to this project was to do his best to get a quality project at a reasonable price. I think he's still targeting between $350,000 and $400,000. His real goal is to keep the cost of these units below $400,000. And to do that, we have to make some choices and some priorities. And at this point, vinyl windows was and non-clad, if you will, is one of the non-aluminum clad is one of the tough choices we had to make at this degree. If you guys say we need to do aluminum, of course. I mean, we're not here to fight fights. We'll do what we need to and what we feel is appropriate to get the approval from this board. We appreciate your input and thoughts, but we respectfully would request vinyl at this time.
Have you explored any other window? Go ahead, Ms. Bailey.
But it's a difference between putting window in an existing building and all new construction. So that's what we're looking at right now.
I agree. And I'm sorry, what were you saying, Madam Chair?
have you explored any other window material like fiberglass? Because obviously vinyl is the cheapest, upfront cost or the most economical, sorry, most
Agreed.
economical, first cost, but the performance of a vinyl window, especially at a larger scale, its life is limited, where a fiberglass can look closer to a wood and perform better than, a vinyl window, but not be below the price point of a wood clad window. Have you explored any other window types besides vinyl?
For this project, no. We kind of suggested vinyl early on and haven't strayed from that. And you're absolutely right. I've used fiberglass before. They're great. Insulation value. They're structurally sturdier. I'm a fan. So if that's an option, I mean, yes, I think we could explore that relative to cost. I don't know. How do you feel, Andrew? I don't want to speak for you.
Oh, I totally agree with what you said. We're not here to fight fights. So, we'd like to listen to the board's recommendation, and of course we'll go with it.
Okay. We'll move on to Ms. Strickland's feedback.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, that's what I was going to suggest as well, is a consideration of a fiberglass window, or, there's several grades in terms of vinyl window and their construction and performance. And so a higher grade vinyl window or a fiberglass window, I would be fine with. Given that this is all new construction, I don't see a need to impose a restriction for the use of aluminum clad wood. So vinyl or fiberglass, a high grade vinyl or fiberglass is fine.
Yeah, we usually use Pella windows, so, I think Pellas would be considered a.
Yeah, the Imperva, Pella Imperva windows is what I put as a replacement in my townhome in Tremont. They're fantastic. So it's great hardware, great performance.
Thanks for that feedback. Other questions or comments from the commission? I'll just finish, I guess, my feedback while we're waiting for others to chime in. I appreciate you listening to our feedback at our last presentation and incorporating it both from the initial through staff and then our presentation, because I think the product has greatly improved from what you brought us last time. And I think I really didn't have much feedback. I'm a purist, so I still would like additional windows on the front just to provide some balance. But that's my personal opinion, because I'm one of those, purists that like things to be in balance at all times. So,
Fair.
Other questions or comments from the commission? Mr. Bonazzi?
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, thank you for, I have to say, because I made a comment, and as a young person, it's weird to be on a commission and be able to make comments, and it's like, oh my God, they listened. It's a personal weird thing for me right now, and I'm actually really excited. But no, I love the project. I keep looking at the Google Maps. I always keep open when I'm in these meetings, and I'm just imagining this now, kind of filling in the cadence of that urban street and just what it's going to bring to that street of new life and new possibilities for people to live in Little Italy. So I'm really excited to see the project go forward.
Thanks. And I appreciate you noting that I'm not young.
That's not at all what I meant.
I'm kidding.
I should stop digging my own grave when I say things like that, but I'll stop there.
Thank you for that feedback also. We all feel a little bit older. No, other questions or comments from the commission, or would someone like to put forward a motion?
I make a motion.
Go ahead.
Move the applicant. The motion is to approve the presentation as presented with the applicant looking at the windows, looking at the fiberglass or the higher grade vinyl but share that information with staff with that decision and share it with them. You don't have to come to commission. That's up to staff if they need to come to commission, but otherwise share that information with staff with the final decision on the windows. That's the motion.
Okay, thank you. Before we move forward with that motion, Don, do I have to finish that motion or can we suspend it and go to the demolition first?
I think that's fine. I just wanted to remind everybody that we should take two actions today, one on the new development and one on the demolition. And I'm taking Miss Bailey's motion as a motion on the new construction. So I think we're okay.
Okay, so we have a motion with the condition.
So you want me to do the motion for the demo first and then let's?
No, we have a motion on the table. I think we should act on it.
Okay.
I'm just going to restate your motion. Your motion is to approve the new construction as presented with a consideration to review the window types and consider an alternate consider high-grade vinyl or fiberglass for the windows. And to bring that forward to staff for final approval. So that's a motion with a condition. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. We have a second. Any further discussion? All right, Mr. Pettit, please call roll and announce the results.
Miss Anderson,
Yes.
Miss Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Bonezzi,
Yes.
Mr. Colicchia, Mr. Dryer,
Yes.
Mr. Strickland,
Yes.
Mr. Tarasik,
Yes.
Ms. Trott.
Yes.
The motion for the new development passes unanimously.
Thanks very much, everyone. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll make the motion for the demolition. I apologize for the
demo.
The direction of it. The motion is to for the demolition of the building on the site.
Okay, so you have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that again.
Thank you. We have a second. Any further discussion related to the demolition of the structure located at 1934 East 122nd or 23rd Street? Right, Mr. Pettit, please call roll and announce the results.
Miss Anderson,
Yes.
Miss Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Bonezzi,
Yes.
Mr. Colicchia, Mr. Dryer,
Yes.
Mr. Strickland,
Yes.
Mr. Tarasik,
Yes.
Ms. Trott.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion for the demolition passes unanimously. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thanks,
We look forward to seeing your project move forward.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bonezzi, I see your hand still up. Did you have a question before we keep going?
No, I just wanted to state for the record, I have a conflicting event, so I have to leave for the rest of the meeting if that is acceptable.
That is acceptable, and thank you for letting us know.
Thank you. See everyone in 2 weeks.
See you in 2 weeks. I believe that, I'm sorry, Carl, I'm looking at, is there anything else on our agenda for certificates of appropriateness?
Yes,
Oh, this
Madam
is,
Chair,
this
we
is,
have one more item.
sorry, I was confusing with the last one since it was in the same area. We'll move on to our last certificate of appropriateness, located at 2137 Murray Hill Road, new construction of a multifamily building. And welcome, Mr. Oliver. Please announce yourself and tell us about your project.
Thank you. I'm Kevin Oliver, the architect for the project. Today, the owners are here as well, Carmen Ayamarino and Jeff Shoykett. We are presenting, like you described, their proposal for a new multifamily duplex building at 2137 Murray Hill Road. It is, the goal is to create this project on an existing paved parking area at the rear of an existing parcel that has a existing duplex building right on Murray Hill at that 2137 address. If you go to the next page, please. We can start by giving some context. The bottom right photo shows the highlighted parcel with the existing duplex building up front at Murray Hill. This aerial photo is older. The accessory garage building at the rear no longer exists. As if you look at the aerial on the left, it shows the remaining slab from that demolished accessory building. And so you can start to see the depth of the parcel. These photos are taken looking to the Edge Hill townhomes, which are at the rear of the parcel. At the top left, you can see them stepping down. And then the photo on the top right is a closer view at that boundary condition where the accessory garage used to be and is now demolished with some of the existing partial walls still there. Bottom photo in the middle is looking back towards Murray Hill from the rear of the site. The yellow gable roof building is the existing duplex there. And the bottom right photo is from Murray Hill looking at the existing duplex, again, the yellow sided building and the adjacent brick masonry building. If you go to the next slide, please. So on our site plan, you can start to see how deep these parcels are in this part of Murray Hill. And so our goal is to use the rear portion of this parcel to build our new structure here. And working with various meetings with the Little Italy Design Review Committee, as well as adjacent neighbors at Edge Hill, we're proposing to site and mass the building so that it can fit in with the context of the rest of the neighborhood. So we are far enough away from the Edge Hill townhomes at the back. We're 34 feet away from that parcel line, but that gives us space to have parking in the rear, parking in front of our proposed building, maintaining the existing shared driveway, which does connect to other paved areas and parking areas at adjacent parcels. So we do need to maintain that, but basically proposing some walkway area, some landscaping to help soften our project here, but to get it sized and scaled to fit within the parcel in the context of the other existing buildings there. If you go to the next slide, please. So this is a little bit further out view of site context with Murray Hill Road on the left side here. Our new project is down at the bottom of the page, and this context takes you all the way up to Prior Court, showing existing buildings, void areas with, again, the Edge Hill townhomes going up on the right side of the sheet here. Next page, please. These are floor plans. So the proposed duplex will have a three-bedroom unit, on the first floor, and then on the second floor and up on the third floor within the sort of raptor space would be a unit that could have 4 bedrooms plus a flex room, or a 5-bedroom unit up there, taking advantage of all the rooms there. But we would configure those rooms with the proper egress windows and access to be compliant in either configuration. Access to the second unit is through a series of stairs at the front of the building, which also has outdoor porches for the tenants of both units. If you go to the next slide, please. Again, this is at the bottom is the third floor unit, and then the roof plan above there. Next slide, please. Exterior, we are proposing a brick veneer masonry base to the building with vinyl siding up above, trying to create a durable and quality base to the building, sort of keeping in context with other elements in the neighborhood of masonry-based buildings or buildings that are entirely masonry. Also helping to give this the the house a base as well as an upper portion, and not a monolithic material there. So we'll have a precast lintels over the windows, vinyl windows here, and you can see some of the various accents and trim that are going on, railings around the stairs and the front porch areas as well. And we're proposing an asphalt shingle roof for the roof of the building here. There's a slight grade from front to back of the project, but we're able to keep our window heads and sills at a consistent height. We won't need to do any stepping on the exterior of the building to accommodate that. If you go to the next slide, please. Again, sort of specifics of the proposed materials, the vinyl siding, brick veneer masonry, asphalt shingles, precast lintels. Next slide, please. Again, more specifics for proposed exterior doors. Next slide. This is the vinyl window product we're proposing. Next slide. More details on that Vinyl Max window. Next slide, please. So this is the last slide in the presentation, and shows the relation. This is a section cut with Murray Hill on the left side and the Edge Hill townhomes on the right, showing the height of our proposed building relative to the Edge Hill townhomes of that location and the existing duplex unit in front. So again, as I mentioned, we've gone through several iterations with Little Lily Design Review and the adjacent neighbors to size the height and depth of our project to accommodate the townhomes without encroaching on them, and keeping our height. So our ridge height is 29'4", keeping it consistent with the neighborhood and not, making a true three-story building with the bearing height above that third story and then adding roof to it. By building within that roof space, we're able to get the square footage for the units and keep the massing of the new project within the scale of the rest of the community there. So that's our presentation. Thank you for your time and happy to answer questions or hear your comments.
Thank you for the presentation. We'll move on to feedback from the local committee.
Hello again. So we've been working with the development team on this project for quite a while. Always one of our concerns was how it impacted the surrounding neighbors. So when we were going through the conceptual phase of this, we agreed with the developer. We had asked the developer to take it off the property line, which in turn raised it a story, and we brought it to the community, and the neighbors were not very happy with it. A lot of resistance, and the developer at the time, agreed to not move forward to go to landmarks with all the opposition, and they came up with this new design, which is the 2-story with the the third floor attic space or finished attic space. We did have this at design review earlier in the month, and the community, the surrounding neighbors were made aware of it. Let me get rid of this call. They were aware of it. They got the drawings in advance. They attended the meeting, and there was support from the Edge Hill residents and people on Murray Hill. So I think the developer did a good job in making this building fit within the context of the site. The committee approved the design earlier this month. So we want to talk that the process on this project did work. The neighbors support it now, and we look forward to them getting this thing built. So we voted to approve the project.
Great, thank you for that feedback. Are there others here to speak on behalf of the project from the city?
Madam Chair, I just want to point out that this project is also supported by Councilman Blaine Griffin. He sent us an email to that effect this morning. I would just add this has been through a long process, and in addition to the siting issues and the community issues, I think this project has come a long way in terms of the quality of design as well. So staff supports this based on the overall improvement of the project over time. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you for that feedback. Are there others here just from the city beyond the very important, the councilman's support is very important, and that's great feedback. Are there any others here? Right, then we will move on and open the floor to the commission for questions and comments. Who would like to start from the commission? Ms. Bailey?
I'd like the combination of the two fab materials and the front porch with the stairs in the one bay. That's kind of unique, so I like that. So this is, I just wish I could have seen how this would look around with the surroundings nearby adjacent building, just to see how it would look, around the area, but that's okay. But I mean, I really like how this looks in relationship with the photograph that I've seen with the rest of the buildings around it. So this really does fit in with the areas that I see and the choice of materials that you're using. So in the close-up view of the porch, I just was curious how thick the columns are you using and the framing thick of the porch edge and the height of the railing. Those are just the three questions I have.
Sure. So the railings would be, they're shown at 42 inches high. The posts, I can't speak exactly how wide they are, but they would be at least 8 inches by 8 inches by the time we had structure and cladding on them.
And what type of materials the railing, especially for the railing for the staircases, and what kind of materials?
So it would be a 5-pon or a fiberglass product just to stay durable and not need maintenance over time there. So it would be, the supports for it would be structural in nature, but then the cladding would be, PVC or fiberglass material.
Is the color gray or is it black?
It would be white. So the siding colors don't quite come through on this, but the siding would be sort of a neutral putty gray color, and then the trim and accents of the rails and the corner trim would be white.
All right, thank you.
Ms. Anderson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just regarding the colors, and you partially answered my question. I guess I'm not totally comfortable with a bright white trim. Maybe if it's just a little bit subdued, just because, titanium white was not a color back then. So, when the district was originally developed, I'm fine with that, the, putty gray or whatever the main body of the upper floors, but yeah, just tone down the white, and I that's my only comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that feedback. Mr. Strickland.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would say, just to be consistent with the comments from the last project that we reviewed, I would encourage the owner to look at the vinyl window product that they're using and the quality of the doors, and just make sure that they're appropriate for in terms of performance and ease of maintenance, just to improve the durability of the product over the long run. Thank you.
Thank you for that feedback. You actually just took exactly what I was going to say, is to review the material of the windows to make, so for the longevity of the building and the area. Is the only feedback I had. I think it's it fits in very nicely, appears like the mother-in-law, house and within the neighborhood. Other questions or comments from the commission, or would someone like to put forward a motion?
I make a motion.
Go ahead.
The motion is to move the presentation as approved with conditions. To look at the materials as Mr. Strickland mentioned for longevity. The materials, and also look at the color to tone down the white color. And I'm assuming that's on the front porch, but just look at everything just to tone down the color and the material for longevity, and just share that with the staff, and that's including the windows too. So if you're using vinyl, look at another material for the windows and share that with staff.
All right, we have a motion with the conditions to review the window type or material with consideration for fiberglass or high-end vinyl, and to reconsider the trim colors from bright white to an alternate color. Do you have a second?
I'll second.
I'll second.
All right, we have 2 new seconds. That's great. We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? All right, Mr. Pettit, please call roll and announce the results.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Ms. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Dryer,
Yes.
Mr. Strickland,
Yes.
Mr. Tarasik,
Yes, yes.
Ms. Trott.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for your time.
Good luck with your project.
Thanks.
That concludes our certificates of appropriateness. We'll now move on to our concept plan reviews. We'll start with the Urban Community School, new construction of a mixed-use building. Could the applicant please use the raised hand function, open your mic, announce yourself, and tell us about your project?
Good morning. This is Christine Raymond with Casmar Architects, and also with me is John Haggerty with Urban Community School.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning. So, John, I don't know do you want to start briefly, or I'll just jump right into it if you'd like.
Yeah, I'll just very briefly. So we've been before the Landmarks Commission before, and we've always appreciated your help as we guide the development of this campus to better serve our children and families. And this is the latest iteration of that. So we were able to purchase this multi-use building on the corner of 48th Street and Lorraine this year. And we are seeking a request to demolish the property given the engineering reports and the analysis we've had done. And I'll let Christine take it from there.
So the package that we've prepared includes a conceptual approval for what the intended use of the site would be, but also we've included in the package for your reference, the engineering reports related to the structural condition of the building that is there now. As John mentioned, they recently obtained it. Prior to that, it's been neglected over many years by the prior owner. We've looked at what could be salvaged. We've looked at it structurally and all of those items, and then determined that the best use of the property and the best interest of the school based on their growth is to demolish the structure and then provide a new building, which is a bit larger than what is there now and would more aptly suit their needs, as this will be mainly the last integral component to the campus master plan. So if you want to scroll through the slides. Okay, so the site in question is 4809 Lorraine, which is here circled on the aerial map. It is located between the school building and the building that opened last year for Metro Health at the east side of West 48th Street. West 48th Street, as you are aware, has been vacated, and we've received approval for the development of West 48th Street south of Lorraine. That construction has begun, and this is the north end of that. So if we go to the next slide, you can see. So again, the building in question is highlighted, which we would be seeking demolition of that structure. You can continue. Here are some photos of that 4809 building. We did have a site visit with the local design review members as well as staff, landmark staff. Carl was able to attend. We did tour the building back over a year ago. Prior to Urban Community School obtaining the building, we did take a look at its condition. I mean, the outside of it has been cited by the Department of Building and Housing for being unsafe, mainly just from the exterior with the bricks falling off of the facade. Urban Community School did obtain a rough estimate probably a year and a half ago, before they even owned it, of just repairing to make it safe on the exterior, and that cost was over $260,000 just for the brick repairs. Since then, they had retained engineers and also a masonry restoration company to look at it to determine its ability to be made stable. It's definitely in an unstable and unsafe condition throughout on the exterior as well as the interior. This building, total square footage is about 9,000 square feet, including the basement. The new building, which we would like to show you, is about 35,000 square feet and would meet the needs of multiple entities. What we're showing here on this slide is that after review with the local design review committee, they're encouraging salvaging whatever items we could from the building, which we have been talking with the demolition contractor to salvage the cornice brackets above the second floor windows, the brackets and dentils, as well as the window hoods on the exterior, many of which are severely decayed, but we're looking at salvaging those, as well as on the interior, there is tin ceiling panels, many of which has extensive damage. Throughout the building, the floor structures have encountered significant water damage, and that has also led to the structural instability, is the damage from the water. But again, we are looking to salvage and reuse whatever tin ceiling elements that we can. Obviously, haven't determined where those might go, but would look to incorporate them into the new design. So here's the site plan of the proposed new structure. As I mentioned, about 35,000 square feet of new usable space. The footprint is just under 12,000 square feet, and it is located between, as I mentioned, just to the east of the existing school. We are looking at, this includes partial demolition of the one-story structure of the existing school as well, in order to accommodate this footprint. As you are aware, most of Lorraine Avenue has historically been two-story, so reducing that one-story component we felt was to our advantage. So this street level floor would include expansion of the urban community school offices, development offices, and administration. Throughout, over the years since 2005, they've greatly grown, obviously, into really an entire campus, and they've outgrown their office space. To provide some sense of scale, the green space there on that plan is the current development office, and this plan would allow them to convert that to an indoor play area, and then you can see the office space on that new level is significantly larger than that. This street level also, the other two components that it includes is a retail component with direct access from Lorraine Avenue. This would be a partnership with a nonprofit entity that works with kids to teach them about businesses and retail and things like that. So that would be, that's what's proposed for the new retail space. And then at the northeast corner is a community room, which could seat up to about 90 people. And that would be open for community partners to utilize that space, as well as all of the campus members. The plaza that we presented to you back earlier this year, I think in March, is basically intact. The edge of it changes shape just slightly, but we've maintained that plaza design as well with this new structure. If you go to the next slide. So here's a aerial view looking at the new campus, the urban community school on the right, the existing, and if we go from right to left, the buff brick portion is existing. That is the one story. We are proposing to take a piece of that down, and then it transitions to a two-story structure, which would be the urban community school offices and on the first floor, as I mentioned. And that would be a two-story masonry and glass facade. As you continue to move east in the center, there's a canopy accenting the retail entrance, as well as access to within near the stairwell that leads elsewhere into the building. So it's a transition point from the two-story structure, and then we're proposing a three-story plus basement in the area of the current building. So what you're seeing there is a 3 levels above grade, with the first level being office space as well as the community room. And then the second floor of this structure is a lease space for another nonprofit partner that Urban Community School has been in contact with that needs space that would be a benefit to this campus. And so that's the second floor would be office space that's leased. And then the top floor is a chapel and boardroom. With regards to the exterior design, we've met with the local design review a couple times and appreciated their comments. And what we've done here is on the 3-story portion, introduced the brick and stone facade just within the first 2 stories to basically pay homage to the building that's there now. And it is roughly a similar proportion in that the brick facade you see there is about the same width in the east-west direction as the building that is there now. And then there's an accent of stone at the corner. And then the 3rd floor is set back from the masonry facade and is all metal and glass. There is a decorative cornice feature between the masonry facade and the upper 3rd story. And then at the corner on the 3rd floor is a glass tower that is an accent feature that is highlighting space within the chapel that is on the top floor. So you can go to the next slide. So this is a view looking to the west of that corner entrance. We obviously we're here before you with conceptual plan, and we need to work through all the design details and everything like that. But that corner feature we really envision as being a special feature with articulation and careful detailing. The angled corner mimics the angled corner that is of the current building, which speaks to the tower that is diagonally across the street from this site. So we would like to maintain that angled corner piece. And then the brick facade returns back to the south towards, along the plaza. You can hit the next slide, please. I think the next slide is just a view from looking east from the west. Here's where we're maintaining the existing school entrance that is located on Lorraine Avenue, which is on the right of your screen. But again, as I mentioned, we're just reducing the one-story portion of that building and putting a two-story new structure more in line with the other heights along Lorraine Avenue. Next slide. There is a basement within this proposed structure, and there is a floor opening at the north end because we want the basement, we want to maximize usable square footage since the site is so tight and the school is in need of space. So the basement will be usable area, and there's a floor opening to allow light and views down from the street level. And also on that street level, there are large windows there, consistent with the pedestrian retail overlay district, and where people will be able to look through those windows and down into the activity of that lower level, as well as then the lower level occupants will gain some natural light and views. Next slide. This is just an enlarged floor plan. Again, you can see the street retail access there sort of in the center of the plan, with the community room to the right, which is going to have direct access from the exterior corner. And then the rest of the space is urban community school offices. The next level up consists of proposed lease space. Again, it's all office space. And then also a bit of growth, or a growth for the school or for another, or for the UCS partner. Next slide. So now here we're at the highest part. The third story is just 6,000 square feet. It's not the entire structure. And it has assembly spaces of the chapel, as well as a large boardroom for urban community school or for other entities to use as a meeting room. And then I think the last is just the roof plan. And now here we've included in our package supporting documents that from the city of Cleveland and then from the engineers with regards to the stability or lack thereof of the existing building. So with that, I would love to hear your comments and questions.
Christine, I'd like to
Thank
just
you.
add real quick, if it's okay. So there was the retail space on the first level, and that's an opportunity for us. There's a partner that we're in communication with out of California who provides entrepreneurial opportunities that engage students in the learning the ins and outs of running a business, and building those entrepreneurial skills. And so our vision would be to put something there that would allow us to leverage that partnership and give our kids those skills. As Christine mentioned, on the second floor, we're looking forward to hosting a community partner who can help us better serve the community. And while we're really excited for this building and what it could present in terms of better serving the community, our children and families, our anxiety right now is really centered around the safety of the current building there. And so you've received the copies of the engineering reports. We have, at our own expense, when we received those reports 2 years ago, 2+ years ago, we immediately ordered a protected walkway all the way around the building at our own expense with the owner's permission, just to provide some level of protection for folks walking in that area, but we know it's not enough. So we're
Excellent. Thank you for that presentation and the supporting documentation. Why don't we move on to either we can, Mr. Moss, are you here to speak about the PRO?
Yes, Madam Chair, I can speak to that briefly if you'd like.
Yes, please. That'd be great.
Certainly. Christine and myself had some conversations this week, and it's been a discussion with the local committee and among staff. So as many of you I'm sure are aware, we have a pedestrian retail overlay on Lorraine. An interesting quirk of the zoning as it stands right now is this property is actually zoned 2-family. And the PRO applies to the retail districts on the street. So no matter any way we slice this, the project as presented for concept would need a lot of zoning entitlements, either through a variance process or through a rezoning to get built. The residential zoning in place doesn't really fit any of the uses that are currently there or that are proposed. And so Christine and I have had some conversations about how to do that. When I first looked at the plans, it looked clear to me that the main entrance of the building was oriented towards the now vacated West 48th Street. And as you're aware, the goal of the PRO, one of the goals of the PRO is to ensure that new buildings and improvements to buildings ensure that there's some more orientation towards the main corridor, in this case being Lorraine. So we've had some conversations about how that might be improved in the design or somehow enhanced and have a better connection to Lorraine in combination with that storefront that's been mentioned, and also how people can access the building and the lobby that's oriented towards 48th also from Lorraine. So that's something we're actively discussing. It's unclear now what the zoning solution may be in order to get this building built. And again, in talking into details with Christine, I've been better able to understand the complexities and the needs involved for UCS and what they're trying to achieve with this building. So I think we still have some options that are worth exploring, but I would mention to the commission that our goal is to still make sure that all buildings, new, old, if they're being built new, if they're being renovated, that they properly engage with Lorraine, because it's a huge, it's a major corridor for us in the neighborhood and something we're looking to improve with the Lorraine rehabilitation project that's currently being planned. And just as the corridor develops, it's a priority in every project we review.
Thank you for that feedback. That's helpful. Before we move on to the other feedback, I overstepped the site visit photographs, so why don't we go back to that and then we can move back on to feedback. Go ahead, Carl.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just going to run through these quickly. We know the building is built sometime between 1881 and 1886 based upon the maps. We don't have too much information regarding it. This was the side, it's a frame building with a brick veneer, and this side here actually collapsed a few years ago, so that was reviewed previously. You can see that the brick is deteriorating badly, and as is the sandstone in some places. This is the first storefront. It does not appear that there's anything historic remaining, although there might, I don't know if any exploration has been done, there might be tin ceilings above this as well, so that might give another opportunity for additional tin ceiling to be salvaged. This is the second space, and we were able to look up in here. That's where we found the tin ceiling. Unfortunately, some reason my photos were not available, and I know I took them. And then you access the basement from there. You can And then we went into the upstairs apartment. We weren't able to access all the apartments, but you get a general idea of how these are all laid out. It doesn't appear that there was much for salvage in the way of elements on this portion, and that's the rear exit. That's all I have right now. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Feedback from the local committee.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the commission. Again, Donna Grigonis, Director of Neighborhood Development for Ohio City and Tremont Development Corporations. So this was reviewed by the local design review committee, but no motion was taken as this was conceptual. And I would like to mimic the same sentiments that Matt Moss expressed regarding the PRO. That is very important to our organization, and we've worked with UCS in the past to make sure that they do adhere to the spirit of the PRO, and we expect to continue doing that. So we do look forward to working on that with them moving forward. So no motion was made, but as this does relate to the demolition request, they looked at it, but they didn't make any motions on this. So the comments weren't really that clear from the most recent meeting because they knew they'd be seeing this again, and this is preliminary. But they thought that this was enough to approve the demolition, which I know we can get into at the next review that has coming up after this, since this is just about the new building. But this does need to adhere to the PRO, and we would ask that, you know, as usual, UCS and, you know, Caxmar Architects continue working with us and city planning and the Landmarks Commission to make sure that this does adhere to those guidelines and the spirit of that important corridor. And especially because this is a building that is being potentially demolished that is contributing at the moment. But we would like to say that we appreciate all the investment UCS has done, and we know that this will be a great addition to the neighborhood at some point, whenever the design is done. So thank you.
Thank you for that feedback. Others from the city or councilman here on the project? Our numbers have dwindled, so we will move on to
Madam
comments.
Chair,
Oh, yes.
I'm
Go
sorry. Just wanted to point out that we have a letter of support for the demolition and for the new construction from Councilman Kerry McCormick.
Excellent, thank you. All right, then we will move, now we'll move on to questions or comments from the commission. Mr. Strickland, Ms. Bailey have had to leave our meeting for other obligations. So just to let everyone know, Mr. Dreyer.
Now you can hear me.
Yes.
Yeah, I want to echo the pedestrian retail overlay concerns. I think because this is a school and because it's really developed in the back, that's where people normally access the school and go in and out of it. It does leave Lorraine a little spare. So I hope they can work on that. The picture that's there right now, that corner piece, I do hope that you really work on developing that. I think that could be like the symbol of the whole school and the whole campus if it was developed right. And it would also perhaps help with the pedestrian retail stuff. I guess other than that, you know, I was looking at the architectural details of the old building that they were talking about trying to salvage, and I'm just wondering. I realize this is a contemporary architecture, but I'm just wondering if there's a way when I mean, for instance, on the second floor of this concept, when I see the rhythm of the windows, it's very similar to the rhythm of the old building, and I'm just wondering if you could do more development. I mean, I'm not talking about attaching those brackets, but maybe there's a more contemporary expression of that could really hark back to the old building, and that's all I've got.
Thank you for that. Mr. Dryer, Ms. Anderson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I first want to say that we all support the mission of Urban Community School, and they've been such an asset to this area. And you know, their campus is beautiful, and they've done so much good work for the community. I was at the site visit. I did walk through the property. It's very deteriorated. That said, I have sold buildings in worse condition that have been rehabilitated by the new owners. I know a couple of years ago, we approved the renovation of a condemned building on Fulton. The building's sill plates and floor joists were rotted out. That all had to be completely rebuilt. So I'm not totally convinced that this is not something that could be salvaged. As with the presentation we had for the building at West 45th and Lorraine, the one that we denied the demolition, but the Board of Appeals is allowing it. You know, we were presented with structural engineering reports and that kind of thing, but you know, we always get the structural engineering report that says, yes, this needs to come down. We really don't get much information on how it can be salvaged or how it can be saved. One of my thoughts is to combine this building with the new construction so that you're not replacing the exterior face brick, which is a veneer, on the entire building. You know, maybe on the two sides, the two corner sides. Yeah, I just really feel that this is one of the last buildings in this side of the street that's contributing, and it's basically an attractive building. There's a lot of wonderful elements that I think we embrace in our older buildings, and that's why we love our historic districts. And I just am not totally convinced that this building needs to come down. I just think there's other ways around it. But I'm not sure how to get that information, you know, to make that case, you know, with the kind of structural or construction assessments and estimates that would need to be provided to make that decision. But I think that I still feel that there's a way to make it work. It's in poor condition as it is. Again, I have seen buildings in worse condition salvaged and reutilized and basically reborn. So that's my comments. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that feedback, Ms. Anderson. Other questions or comments from the commission? I guess I'll give my feedback now. I guess I'm aligned with Mr. Dryer and Ms. Anderson. I like the direct, and obviously I support the mission. I think, you know, what you're providing here is a wonderful completion of a vision that you've had for so many years. But I do feel that, you know, it makes me very sad that we can't salvage any of this existing building because it is unique and you know, it is currently contributing. So I'm personally grappling with that. If it has to come down, you know, to what Mr. Dryer's comments, can you emulate parts of it so that it still plays homage to what the existing building is and its style, but recognizes that it's, you know, it's not the existing building. And then related to the third story, I would encourage you to study that to see if you can push it back further than you have right now. because you've done such a great job of respecting the streetscape and the proportions of the block, that if you pushed it back, it would become less dominant. Right now, it feels very dominant and domineering to me, and it's just probably just the perspective, to be honest. But I think by just really focusing on how you could step that back a little bit further so that it felt less engaged with that front end elevation. Right now, it feels more engaged, but if it was back a few feet, it would allow that front elevation to stand a little bit more proud and lessen the impact of that third story along the range. And then the tower, I would also encourage you to study that. And I like how you've tried to incorporate the transparency of that third floor, though, and the tower for the chapel, so that it once again sort of downplays the higher scale. But I think it just still needs to be studied more to really, you've done such a great job for the rest of the buildings and the entire campus. A little bit more studying of this, I think, is needed, but the overall mission of the project and the multi-purpose building here, I support, along with studying the entrances on Lorraine is the last thing that I would encourage you to study.
And Madam Chairwoman, we would be happy to work with the Landmarks Commission on that design as we move forward. When we come out for a construction permit, we would certainly expect to work with you on all these things that you've mentioned. I think we've demonstrated a good track record of being good partners and operating in good faith, and that wouldn't stop here.
And we're confident you will, and we appreciate that.
I would reiterate, Madam Chair, we always appreciate the Commission's comments. We've always been able to glean a lot of good insight and help make the designs better through that process.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, the only thing I'll add is with regards to the existing structure, it really becomes less about a restoration, more about a rebuild. So that's what we've been wrestling with, wrestling with it financially and also wrestling with it conceptually, in a way, rebuilding the entire masonry facade because it really can't be restored, or we don't feel comfortable with that, knowing that it's not the masonry that's there. It has no ties and it's not tied back and everything. So it becomes more of a rebuild, a reconstruction, and is that in the best spirit of what we're trying to do, as well as financial constraints with that. So.
Well, in essence, you are doing a rebuild already, right? You're using a fair amount of the same amount of, you're using a very similar amount of masonry in here, which is great to see. I think it's a blurry line because we know every restoration includes a fair amount of rebuild, regardless of what you're doing. So I would just encourage you to continue studying that, because I would agree with what Ms. Anderson said. It makes me sad because this is a very unique building, and if there is a way to rebuild or really provide an understanding and respect of the structure that was there, and allow it to integrate with your campus, I think it just would continue your community connection of really respecting what is there and trying to continue developing the neighborhood and your facility.
Understood.
Other questions or comments from the commission? I candidly think all of us that are still here have pretty much commented that are able to.
So I guess my only question then would be, are we speaking about the demolition as a second agenda item like it's listed, or?
No, I think we've, in the concept, I think you've explained your demolition proposal. In my opinion, Don can disagree, but I think you explained it well enough. And I think well, I shouldn't say that so quickly. I will say from my own personal opinion, like I said, I I understand the condition of the building, but I am not 100% sold on the complete demolition of the project. So I think that's my personal opinion on the demolition. Other feedback for the applicant on the demolition? Oops, I cannot see my top. Ms. Anderson?
I can make a couple more comments. I'm going to try to be brief, and this will be probably the last of my comments. But from like looking through that basement, it didn't look like totally structurally unsound. There was a lot of deflection in the floor, but that can be that can be addressed in the demo. Again, I think maybe the building can be incorporated into some new construction as opposed to, completely, a total renovation, around the whole perimeter of the building. The exterior is brick. I mean, those bricks are falling out. There's parts where they're missing. Granted, they're in really bad shape, but it's a brick veneer. So, we had a brick veneer go in the restoration of the church on West 30th by St. Ignatius. They did a beautiful job. It looks fantastic. So, I think a lot of this stuff is doable. It's just something that I think is worth exploring. I know I'm kind of going against the grain here, but that's my sincere belief. And I think it would be a huge loss to the street. That's a large contributing building. I really don't want to see it go. I really don't. So again, thank you for allowing me to speak. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Mr. Brunges?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have the demolition under a concept currently on our agenda, so we don't have it as an action item. So I think the commission would need more concrete direction on the final design of the building before it could take any final decision on the demolition. But at least you know that the concept of it coming down is there, and then the questions that were raised today would be addressed when they come for final approval. Thank you.
Agree. And thanks for that feedback and clarification. These are both concepts, so it's all just for feedback. Other questions, comments, or feedback for the applicant on the concept and the demolition? Okay, I am not seeing any additional hands. So does the applicant feel like you've received enough feedback from us to understand our position, our recommendations to progress your design?
I would ask, Madam Chairwoman, I would just ask, we've produced the structural engineering reports. We brought engineers in the building. We brought restoration professionals in to look at like the facade and if there's any way to save it. Is there something the commission would recommend and additional steps we take, people we talk to see, to answer some of these questions?
I would personally recommend talking to them to see if, if the whole building is not salvageable, are there portions that can be salvaged? And to allow it to incorporate parts of it, excuse me, the current building into the design, but understand that the majority of the building is not structurally stable. That's what I would recommend doing. And I think that's if you've asked that nothing can be saved, I'm just with Miss Anderson on this one that it's just, like I said, it makes me sad. I really would like to see parts of it saved because it does contribute to the neighborhood. So I would encourage you to talk to your partners a little bit more and then bring that forward in your next presentation.
Okay, so we do have in our demolition proposed contract that we would save the tin roof and the other pieces that Christine mentioned, but you're saying in addition to that, is there anything else that we can salvage from this building, whether in our building or another building in the area.
I guess I'm still looking on Google Earth because I'm one of those people too. If there's a way to help, to salvage or to maintain the front elevation of the building, incorporate that, and then rebuilding the brick as needed for just that elevation is my personal dream for this project. I'll say it that way, because then it can provide you the flexibility of your needs, but maintain that understanding of the structure that was there. So I'd encourage you just to talk to them more and ask if anything, the structure itself could be saved and incorporated. I will have to trust staff and Ms. Anderson's review of the building, though, if they feel it's unsound or not, restorable or not.
And I concur with the chairwoman. I don't think the whole building needs to be, saved intact as is. The elevation facing Lorraine and maybe the eastern part of the eastern elevation, maybe 15 feet setback or something. Just something so we hold on to a contributing historic structure. So I appreciate you taking this into consideration.
We can certainly look at it further. We did speak to the engineers that toured the building about could those two facades be shored and the building behind it removed, and their conclusion was that it was not possible to safely do that. And then I'll also interject, it's a different project if we do that because the existing building is a wood structure and the building that with the uses and the amount of area that we're proposing would lend itself away from a wood structure from a building code perspective. So that's another piece that we're wrestling with, is that it would become more of a mix of trying to save that building, but then building separate additional buildings around it. Part of the challenge. I think we would lose some of the features that we're actually talking about here with the corner feature, etc., by trying to save it. Again, we can certainly look at it. I would just note that it did not appear to be logistically possible. It would be those walls come down and we rebuild something in its place. Because as soon as we take the structure that's behind it is failing with regards to the joists and the beams, and they're not adequately sized and things like that. So the entire structure behind those walls would come down. And then because of the current condition of those walls and the water damage that has occurred within the wood structure behind the brick, they're unstable and they would not be able to be shored up. So that's just an addition. We have been discussing that option and trying to think of a creative way to do it. We haven't come up with that answer of anything that would be safe and feasible, and still accomplish as many of the goals as the majority of the goals that are outlined here with how to utilize the site.
I understand. I'm grappling with that, but that's helpful to understand in some of those additional considerations that have to be taken in for code reasons, especially. Mr. Pettit, you had your hand up?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to say I agree with Ms. Anderson and yourself about further exploration of what could be salvaged here. But I'm concerned, I don't think this case is comparable to the one at 4500 Lorraine. I think I still feel bad about that demolition because I don't think they made their case. I do think there are serious issues here, and I'm also concerned design-wise about how you incorporate what is essentially a brand new facade into a new building, and whether or not it's actually going to work in terms of design integrity. And that's my big concern. I do appreciate the gestures you've made in terms of the design of the new building, in terms of, you know, the height and the materials. But I'm not sure it really conveys anything about the history of that building. I'd prefer to see a better corner treatment that addresses Lorraine and the plaza. But I do think it's worth exploring other ways to incorporate the historic building into the design. But I can't say right now what those would entail or how successful. You know, I'm concerned that we shouldn't just tack on historic elements onto a new building. Somehow it has to be integral, and I'm not confident that the effort is worth what the outcome would be. That's just my take on it.
Oh, that's good feedback. Ms. Anderson?
One last comment. I just am wondering if there's other situations similar to this, you know, throughout the country, and how, you know, architects may have approached, you know, incorporating, you know, at least part of the existing structure with the new construction, so that it still reads from the street. You can still see that, you know, that the historic character is there, and yet, you know, the balance of the building would be, you know, something new and something that can accommodate the programming. You know, I just wanted to see if there's something, you know, some other organization, somebody who did something similar to what you and I are discussing here, as far as incorporating an existing building into you know, something new and something more suitable to the program of the applicant. So that's all I wanted to say. There's something else out there that we can look at as an example.
I think it's good to do that exercise and look at where this has been done in the past. I know we've approved projects where the historic facade was retained, or major elements of a facade were retained. You know, I'm thinking of the entrance feature in the old Cuyahoga building. They tended to be, you know, limited to certain features. I can't think of a good example where we actually retained a facade and built a new building behind it. You know, I can think of examples in Montreal, and maybe there are other ones out there, but I think I do agree that it's worth the exercise to at least look at where it's been done successfully before.
Does that give you enough feedback from the applicant side?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. So then, since this was just a concept review, we will not be taking a vote. So we look forward to seeing you back in the near future with your final proposal.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your time and your comments.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Have a great day.
You too. Take care.
Thank you. That concludes our concept plan review. Administrative reports.
I do not have a report today. I know that there's a groundbreaking in 10 minutes at the Longfellow School in Collinwood, but I don't know if anyone has time to get out there in time for the event. I knew today's meeting was going to run long, and I just want to thank you all for getting us in under 4 hours.
There you go. See, that's why I'm trying to move everybody along here. So there you go. We're going to get it in and conclude so we can keep that on our records and try to keep that goal for future meetings also. All right, so then I think if there's no administrative reports, we can adjourn today's meeting. We'll see everybody on July 8th.
Have a happy Independence Day, everyone.
Happy Independence Day.
Thank you.
Thank you. You too.